By the seventh coat, I could no longer see my own hands. There was camel hair over my left arm, black wool over my right, and somebody's damp trench coat sliding toward the floor. A fur-trimmed hood kept brushing my mouth. Each time I tried to shift the pile, another guest came through the upstairs door and Lauren pointed them toward me. "My mom will take that," she said. "Not Mom, could you help for a second? Not even my name. My mom will take that." The newest guest was a silver-haired man with an expensive smile. He slipped off his overcoat, handed it to me, and said, "Thank you, dear," without looking at my face. Then he pressed folded bills into my fingers. I stared at the money. Across the room, my daughter saw him do it. For 1 second, I waited for her to laugh and say, "Oh no, that's Elaine. She's family." Instead, Lauren glanced at the man, glanced at the champagne being passed behind him, and turned away. That was when I understood that the coats weren't the problem. 6 hours earlier, she had called me to ask if I owned anything navy. I was standing barefoot in my bedroom with one earring in and one earring lost somewhere in the carpet. "I own blue," I said. "Navy or blue? What is blue? You know? Bright blue. Political campaign blue. I didn't know colors had political affiliations. Mom." I heard traffic through her car speaker and the quick clicking sound of her turn signal. Lauren was always calling while driving, as if I fit naturally between one destination and the next. "The dress is dark blue," I said. "The one Ruth helped me pick." A pause. "Which Ruth?" "My neighbor, Ruth. The woman you met twice." "Oh, right." "Does it have sleeves?" "Yes, Lauren. It has sleeves, a neckline, and all the other standard dress components. I'm not criticizing. I'm just trying to picture it." I found the missing earring by stepping on it. Ow! What happened? Nothing. I found my earring with my foot. "You should wear the pearls Dad gave you." My hand stopped halfway to my ear. The pearls were in the top drawer of my dresser, inside a gray velvet box that still smelled faintly of the cedar chest where Frank used to hide gifts. He'd given them to me on our 30th anniversary with a card that said, "Not as luminous, but they'll have to do." He had been pleased with that line for weeks. "I might," I said. "It would be nice, since we're doing the little tribute to him." The little tribute. At dinner. Nathan's going to mention him in the toast. I sat on the edge of the bed. "Nathan is?" Dad loved Nathan. He did, and he was such a big part of our wedding. "He was," Lauren sighed. "Why do you sound like I'm being strange?" "I don't. I'm glad you're remembering him. We remember him all the time. That wasn't exactly true, but it wasn't exactly false either." Lauren kept one photograph of her father in the upstairs hallway, where no one stopped long enough to look at it. She mentioned him every year on the anniversary of his death, and sometimes on Father's Day. But grief had become something she preferred scheduled. "What time should I be there?" I asked. 6. Maybe 5:45. "You told me 6:30. "I know, but I need one person there who won't create more work for me." She said it warmly, almost as a compliment. I looked at myself in the dresser mirror. One pearl earring, one bare ear, reading glasses on top of my head. The reliable person, the practical one, the person who arrived early and brought safety pins. 5:45, I said. "You're the best. I have to call the florist." She hung up before I could tell her I had something for her. The photograph sat on my kitchen table, wrapped in cream tissue paper. I had found it 2 weeks earlier while looking for the warranty on the washing machine. Lauren was 27 in the picture, barefoot on a kitchen chair, holding the front of her wedding dress against her chest while I repaired a strap that had come loose. Frank had taken it without either of us noticing. Lauren's head was thrown back. My mouth was open in laughter, a needle still pinched between my fingers. Neither of us looked elegant, but we looked happy in the careless way people do, when no one has warned them that a moment will matter later. I had put the photograph in a narrow silver frame. Nothing ornate. Lauren didn't like ornate. At 5:30, Ruth knocked on my door without waiting for an answer. "That better be you walking around in shoes," she called. It is. Both shoes? Yes. She came into the bedroom carrying a lint roller and wearing the expression of a woman prepared to find fault for my own protection. Ruth had been widowed 11 years, which she believed gave her seniority over me in matters of loneliness, furnace maintenance, and formal wear. She circled me once. "Well," she said. "Well, what?" "You look beautiful." Annoying, but beautiful. The dress was a deep midnight blue with 3/4 sleeves and a skirt that moved when I turned. I had almost returned it because it cost more than I thought a dress should cost at my age. Ruth had taken the receipt out of my hand and tucked it down the front of her blouse. "You can't return what you can't document," she'd said. Now she lifted my hair away from the pearls. "Frank's." I nodded. Her teasing expression softened, but thankfully not for long. If that man had known how much those cost, he would have haunted you until you wore them to the grocery store. He told me they were on sale. Frank told everybody everything was on sale. I picked up the wrapped photograph. Ruth's eyes went to it. "That for Lauren?" "Yes." "What did she get you for your last anniversary?" "My anniversary to whom?" "You know what I mean." "No, I don't." She rolled lint from my shoulder that wasn't there. "I mean, you're always showing up with something that proves you remember. Make sure she remembers you showed up." It sounded too pointed, and I gave her a look. Ruth raised both palms. "Fine. I'm behaving. You are bad at it." So was Frank. You liked him. That was true. Outside, the air had the metallic bite that promised sleet. I drove downtown with the photograph on the passenger seat and Lauren's emergency sewing kit in my purse. The kit had once belonged to me. Over the years, Lauren had borrowed every pair of scissors and spool of neutral thread from her own house, so I kept replacements for her. The restaurant occupied an old brick building that had been polished until its age looked expensive. A brass plaque beside the door gave the name in letters so small you had to lean close, which I suspected was one way wealthy people recognized one another. Inside, a young hostess in black led me up a narrow staircase. "You're with the Mercer party." "Dawson," I said. "My daughter is Lauren Dawson." "Of course." "The anniversary dinner." She smiled with professional relief, as if I had passed a test, and opened the door to the private floor. Lauren stood in the middle of the room, surrounded by white flowers, candles, and 3 people asking her questions. She wore an ivory dress with a low back, her dark hair pinned into a knot that appeared effortless and had probably required structural engineering. When she saw me, her whole face changed. "Mom." "Thank God." She hurried over and kissed the air beside my cheek so she wouldn't disturb either of our makeup. "You're early. You asked me to be." "I know. I just didn't think you'd be this early." It was 5:47. She took my wrists and looked me over. "The dress is good." High praise. "No, I mean it." "You look really pretty." For a moment, she was simply my daughter again. Her thumb brushed the pearl at my left ear. "Dad's pearls," she said. "Yes." Nathan came out from behind a freestanding floral arrangement carrying a box of place cards. He was tall, broad-shouldered, and usually calm in a way that made other people feel unreasonable. That evening, his tie was untied, and his calm had developed cracks. "Elaine," he said, "you made it." I was briefly tempted by Mexico, but here I am. He laughed and hugged me with one arm, keeping the place cards level in the other. "You look terrific. Thank you. So do you, from the neck down." He glanced at his loose tie. "Lauren said she'd do it." "Nathan, I said I would do it when I wasn't answering 4 questions," Lauren called. I set the wrapped photograph on a side table and tied his tie. I had done Frank's for 41 years because he claimed his hands were too large for knots, though those same hands could rebuild a carburetor. Nathan lowered his voice. "She's been a little wound up. It's an anniversary dinner, not a moon landing." "Please don't tell her that." "I heard you," Lauren said. She crossed the room, straightened the knot I had just made, then noticed the photograph. "What's that?" "A little something for you. Can we open it later?" "I don't want anything else on the gift table until I figure out the arrangement." Of course. She moved it behind a vase still wrapped. The room was beautiful, though I could see Lauren's fingerprints all over the beauty. Tiny cards identified each flower arrangement. Menus were printed on thick cream paper. At the center of every place setting sat a chocolate truffle dusted with gold. I recognized several names on the cards, but very few faces. Lauren's old college roommate, Celia, was coming. Nathan's mother, Judith, had not arrived yet. Most of the guests were people from Nathan's firm or couples Lauren had met after moving into the new neighborhood. "Where would you like me?" I asked. Lauren pointed to the side table. "Could you put the favors at each place?" "One per person, except Celia is allergic to hazelnuts, so hers has the green ribbon." I began distributing small white boxes. Then one of the restaurant managers approached Lauren with the careful expression of someone carrying bad news in a very expensive building. There had been a misunderstanding about the private coat closet. The closet belonged to another event space and was inaccessible from ours. They could bring a portable rack, but the rack was in storage across the street. It would take time. Lauren stared at him. "People are arriving in 10 minutes. We can place coats along the lounge seating temporarily. The lounge is where we're doing cocktails. We'll have the rack as soon as possible." He left. Lauren closed her eyes. "Breathe," I told her. "I am breathing." "You're holding your breath while saying that." The first guests arrived before the portable rack did. Nathan greeted them. Lauren smiled as if no difficulty had ever entered her life. A woman in a red dress slipped off her coat and looked around uncertainly. Lauren took it, then turned to me. "Mom, could you hold everyone's coats for a minute?" I set down the favor boxes and reached for it. "Just until they bring the rack," she said. That first coat weighed almost nothing. The second belonged to a woman named Monica, who hugged Lauren while still wearing it, then peeled it off and passed it backward without looking. The third was Nathan's business partner's. The fourth came with a scarf tucked into one sleeve and leather gloves stuffed into the other. "Keep those together, please," the owner told me. "I'll alert the authorities if they separate." He blinked, uncertain whether I was joking. I was still holding the favor box meant for Celia, so I set it on the closest windowsill. More guests climbed the stairs in a gust of cold air, perfume, and congratulations. Lauren greeted each of them by name, accepted kisses, touched elbows, and guided them toward champagne. She was good at making people feel that their arrival had improved the evening. All I saw were their shoulders. A tan coat blocked Celia's favor box. Someone draped a silk scarf across the back of my neck. The scarf's perfume was so strong I could taste it. "Lauren," I said when she passed me. "Where should these go?" "Just one more minute. I'm reaching my load-bearing limit." She gave a distracted smile. "You're doing great." I had heard those same words from her while holding a flashlight under her kitchen sink as Nathan tried to fix a leak. I had heard them while carrying 6 grocery bags because she was answering an email. They were the sort of encouragement you gave a pack animal if you wanted it to keep moving. A server appeared with a tray of champagne. I tried to take a glass, but there was no useful part of my hand available. "Oh," he said, "I can come back. I may be dead by then." He laughed politely and moved on. The silver-haired man arrived next. I knew from Lauren's greeting that he was called Philip. His wife had gone ahead of him, already reaching for champagne, and he removed his overcoat with slow, practiced movements. When he handed it to me, I felt something heavy in an inside pocket strike my wrist. Then came the folded bills. It was $20. He had put $20 in my hand like he was paying to make himself lighter. Lauren saw it. I knew she did because our eyes met. She turned toward a woman near the flowers and opened her arms. "Caroline, you look gorgeous." Philip had already entered the room. He did not see me hold the money out after him. "Sir?" A couple stepped between us. The woman handed me a white coat fastened with pearl buttons. "Careful with this one," she said. "It stains if you breathe near it." I almost told her I would stop breathing immediately. Instead, I slid the 20 into the outside pocket of Philip's overcoat. It was the only part of him I could still reach. A restaurant employee came up the stairs pushing a brass garment rack. Relief rose in me so quickly I nearly kissed him. The rack had made it 3 feet into the room when the manager intercepted it. They whispered, pointed at the narrow landing, and whispered again. "What's wrong?" Lauren asked. "Unfortunately, the rack can't remain here," the manager said. "It obstructs the required exit width, so put it inside. It would need to cross the cocktail service area, and the base may damage the floor." Lauren stared at the brass rack as though it had betrayed her personally. "Could your staff take the coats downstairs?" I asked. The manager looked grateful to be addressed by someone who wasn't furious. "We can store them in our office. Retrieval might take a few minutes at the end of the evening." "That's fine," I said. "It isn't," Lauren said. "Everyone will be standing around waiting." "Lauren, they're adults. They've stood before." She lowered her voice. "Mom, please don't make this harder." The words were quiet enough that no one else heard them. That seemed important to her. "I'm not making it anything," I said. "I am standing here under half the livestock in North America." Nathan appeared beside us. He had finally found his calm, or at least the face he used for it. "What's happening?" "The restaurant can store the coats downstairs," I said. "But it'll be a mess getting them back," Lauren said. "We're doing drinks for 20 minutes. Mom can just stay near them until we sit." Nathan looked at me, then at the pile. "Are you okay with that, Elaine?" It was a better question than Lauren had asked. It still came too late. "I would like to put them down." "Of course." He took 2 coats off the top and carried them to the lounge sofa. The manager began helping. Within a minute, the coats formed a dark hill across 2 velvet couches. My arms tingled as the blood returned. There were red marks at my wrists. I rolled my shoulders and went in search of the champagne server. I had just secured a glass when Lauren caught my elbow. "Mom, would you mind staying over here?" "Over where?" "Near the coats. I thought I was finished with the coats." "You are, mostly. Just keep an eye on them." "Why? Some people left valuables in the pockets. They left valuables in their own pockets, and we don't want anything to go missing." I looked around the room. Every person there had been invited by my daughter or her husband. "Are you expecting your friends to rob each other? Don't be ridiculous. I'm trying very hard." Her mouth tightened. "Can you do this one thing without turning it into a discussion?" That was when Celia arrived. She came through the door in a green dress and snow boots, carrying her coat over one arm rather than wearing it. She was a small woman with copper-colored hair and the nervous energy of someone who always suspected the party had begun without her. "Mrs. Mercer." She hugged me before she hugged Lauren. Celia had called me Mrs. Mercer since she was 19, despite years of invitations to stop. "You look amazing," she said. "Where have you been hiding?" "Under outerwear." She laughed, then looked at the couches. "Good Lord. Is that the coat situation?" "Temporary," Lauren said quickly. "The restaurant made a mistake. Celia handed her coat to Nathan instead of me. I'll put mine in the car." "No, it's freezing," I said. "I've survived worse for fashion." She noticed the champagne in my hand and tapped her glass to mine. "I'm glad you're here. I was afraid this was going to be all people with opinions about kitchen islands." Lauren gave her a cool look. "You have opinions about kitchen islands?" "Yes, but mine are correct." For a few minutes, Celia stayed with me near the lounge. She told me about a disastrous date with a dermatologist who examined a spot on her neck before the appetizers arrived. She made me laugh hard enough that champagne touched my nose. Then Lauren pulled her away to meet someone. "I'll come back," Celia promised. "You don't have to babysit me. I'm hiding with you." But Caroline, who apparently did have opinions about kitchen islands, intercepted her. I was alone again. Judith Dawson arrived at 6:20 wearing a cream-colored wool coat and the corsage Lauren and I had chosen over video chat 2 weeks earlier. White roses, small enough not to look bridal. Lauren had sent me 6 photographs and rejected my first 5 opinions before selecting the one I originally preferred. Judith was 71, slender, and unfailingly gracious, in a way I sometimes envied and sometimes distrusted. She kissed both my cheeks. "Elaine, that color is marvelous on you. Thank you. Your corsage is beautiful. Wasn't Lauren thoughtful? Very. Judith removed her coat, hesitated when she saw the heap, and kept it over her arm. I think I'll hang this on my chair. There won't be room, Lauren told her. Mom's watching them here. Judith looked at me. Oh, Elaine, you've been put to work. Before I could answer, Lauren tucked Judith's hand through her arm. Just for cocktails. Come see where you're sitting. They walked together toward the dining room. I watched Lauren bend close to say something in Judith's ear. Judith laughed. At the doorway, Nathan put a hand on his mother's back and guided her inside so she could admire the table. No one meant anything by it. That was the phrase I had used for years whenever a small hurt felt too embarrassing to name. Lauren didn't mean anything when she asked me to bring a pie and then introduced it as homemade without mentioning who's home. Nathan didn't mean anything when he called me because Lauren was upset, but disappeared as soon as she felt better. Aaron didn't mean anything when he visited for 3 days and left my refrigerator empty and his sheets on the bed. Meaning, I had decided, was reserved for cruelty performed with advanced planning. Everything else was simply life, and I was very good at cleaning up after life. I drank the rest of my champagne. On the windowsill, the green ribbon favor was still half hidden behind the tan coat. I picked it up and carried it toward the dining room. The table looked even more beautiful with people around it. Candlelight moved across the glassware. A low arrangement of white roses and eucalyptus ran down the center. At the far end, Nathan was showing Judith her chair. Her place card sat directly beside Lauren's. I began looking for mine. Mrs. Mercer, maybe, if the calligrapher had been formal. Elaine, if Lauren had remembered I disliked titles at family dinners. I walked along one side of the table, pretending to admire the flowers. Philip, Caroline, Monica, a man named Everett. Celia's place was near the middle, so I set her favor beside her glass. There was no Elaine. I checked the other side. Nathan came up behind me. Everything okay? I'm looking for my seat. He glanced toward the place cards and rubbed one eyebrow with his thumb. That tiny movement told me he already knew there was a problem. Lauren's sorting it out, he said. Sorting what out? We had a mix-up with the count. How does a place setting become a mix-up? Dan and his wife came. They'd told us they probably couldn't, so Lauren didn't think. Were they invited? Yes, but we didn't expect them. And you expected me, obviously. Then where was I supposed to sit before they arrived? Nathan looked toward Lauren. She was across the room speaking to the manager, her smile gone. The manager shook his head. Lauren pointed discreetly at the table. He shook his head again. I knew that look. I had seen it when the bakery wouldn't remake a cake because she had ordered the wrong size. I had seen it when an airline refused to move her to a different flight without a fee. Lauren was trying to turn certainty into currency. She came over fast. They can add a chair, she said, but it'll make the table uneven. I can survive asymmetry. It's not just that. There isn't enough clearance for the servers. Then perhaps the unexpected guests can sit in the lounge. Her eyes flashed. I can't ask them to do that. The sentence settled between us. Not them. Behind Lauren, the manager opened the dining room doors. Servers took their positions. Guests began drifting toward their seats. Here's what we'll do, Lauren said. Her voice softened, which was how I knew I wasn't going to like what came next. You stay out here for the first course. Watch the coats. As soon as people settle, we'll figure something out. And where will I eat? They can bring you a plate. To the coat pile. Mom, please, it's 20 minutes. A server closed one of the double doors, leaving a narrowing view of the candle-lit table. Nathan remained beside us, silent. Through the opening, I could see Judith taking her seat next to my daughter. I looked at Lauren. Did you invite me to dinner? She gave a short, disbelieving laugh. Of course I did. That isn't what I asked. The second door began to close. Lauren glanced toward her guests, then back at me. I don't have time for this right now. I know, I said. That seems to be the problem. I walked to the side table and reached behind the vase for the photograph. Then I went to find my coat. Mine was underneath Judith's cream wool and something black with brass buttons that looked heavy enough to have anchors in the pockets. I set the wrapped photograph on the arm of the sofa and began lifting coats one by one. A sleeve knocked over an empty champagne flute. It landed on the rug without breaking, though the sound brought the manager out of the dining room. "May I help you, ma'am? I'm trying to locate my coat." "Of course." He stepped forward, then stopped when he saw the size of the pile. "Can you describe it?" "Gray, knee length. It looks exactly like every practical winter coat ever made." He began searching from the other end. Through the closed doors came the muffled rhythm of Nathan speaking. He was welcoming everyone. His voice rose and fell with the confidence of a man who had spent years presenting things to conference rooms. A few people laughed. The manager held up a silver coat. "No." "A red one." "No." The dining room doors opened, and a server backed out carrying an empty tray. Behind him, Nathan was saying, 15 years ago, I was smart enough to marry the only person I've ever met who could make chaos obey her." That earned a larger laugh. The server looked at me kneeling beside the coats, then at the manager. "Is there a problem?" "No problem," I said. The manager found my coat near the bottom. "This one? That's the thrilling garment." He held it open for me. I slipped my arms into it and felt immediate gratitude for its plainness. It belonged to no performance. It had been bought because it was warm. The photograph was where I had left it, though the cream tissue had torn at one corner. I tucked it under my arm. The manager's eyes moved from me to the dining room doors. "Would you like me to call a car?" I drove. "Shall I inform Mrs. Dawson that you're leaving?" "No. Mrs. Dawson knows." He understood enough not to ask more. That was one of the useful qualities of people who worked around expensive celebrations. They saw emotional wreckage and knew how to step around it without disturbing the flowers. I had reached the stairs when Celia's came out of the restroom. "Mrs. Mercer?" I turned. She looked at my coat and the photograph under my arm. "Are you going somewhere?" "Home. Are you sick?" "No." Her face changed. Celia had always been quick. It was why she and Lauren had managed to remain friends despite being opposites in almost every visible way. "Where were you sitting?" she asked. The question was so direct that I nearly laughed. Apparently, I was not. "What?" "They're short a chair. I'm long a chair." The mathematics did not favor me. She stared past me toward the dining room. "It's fine," I said automatically. "No, it isn't. I don't want a scene. I can give you my seat. That would make you the woman in the hallway. I don't care. I do." She opened her mouth, closed it, then lowered her voice. "Does Lauren know you're leaving?" "Yes." That answer was generous, but not false. Lauren knew what I was doing when I picked up the photograph, whether she had allowed herself to believe it was another matter. Celia glanced at the closed doors. "I can come with you. You came for your friend's anniversary. Go eat. Mrs. Mercer." Celia, using her name, stopped her. "I appreciate it," I said, "but if you leave with me, this becomes a story about you leaving with me. I would like one thing tonight to remain about what actually happened." She looked angry enough to fight me, which made me like her more. "At least text me when you get home. I don't have your number." She took my phone out of my hand before I could object and entered it. Then she called herself so she would have mine. "There," she said. "You're bossier than you used to be. I learned from Lauren." The joke hung between us and lost its shape. She squeezed my hand. "I'm sorry. You didn't do it." "No. I'm sorry I didn't see it sooner." I went downstairs. The hostess opened the front door, and cold air struck my face. Sleet ticked against the awning. For a moment I stood under the brass plaque, looking through the window at strangers eating in the main dining room. Every chair was occupied. A server leaned between two men to refill a water glass. A woman cut a piece of bread and buttered it all the way to the edges. The ordinariness of it nearly undid me. My car was parked 4 blocks away because the restaurant valet line had been full when I arrived. By the time I reached it, the tissue around the photograph was freckled with sleet, and my careful hair had begun to collapse. I put the photograph on the passenger seat. My phone rang before I had fastened my seatbelt. Lauren. I watched her name fill the dashboard screen. The call stopped, then started again immediately. I answered. Where are you? In my car? You left? Yes. Mom, what is going on? A horn sounded behind her voice, followed by the hollow slam of a door. She had stepped into the stairwell. I'm going home. You can't just walk out in the middle of our dinner. I wasn't in the middle of your dinner. You know what I mean. I know exactly what you mean. She lowered her voice. They're moving all the coats downstairs now because you left them unattended. Good. That was the manager's original suggestion. People are asking questions. What questions? Where you went? Why you were leaving? Celia came back in looking like she wanted to stab someone with a salad fork. That sounds inefficient. This isn't funny. No. Through the windshield, sleet gathered in tiny glass beads. I switched on the wipers. They dragged the water aside with a rubber groan. Lauren said, "You embarrassed me." There it was, the first clean statement either of us had made all evening. I embarrassed you. Yes, you could have waited 20 minutes. For what? For us to sort it out. You sorted it out. You gave my chair away. We didn't give your chair away. You did, unless chairs are now occupied by spiritual essence instead of people. Dan and Marcy were invited. So was I. They drove 2 hours to be there. I wore pearls. Silence. It was not the response she expected. It had not been the response I expected either. What? She said. Nothing. No, what does that mean? I looked at the photograph on the passenger seat. The tissue had split enough for me to see one corner of silver frame. Do you know what I was wearing tonight? I asked. You just said pearls. What color was my dress? Another silence. Shorter this time. Blue. What kind of blue? Mom, I don't know, dark blue. You called me 6 hours ago to make sure I didn't wear the wrong blue. I told you that you looked pretty. You did. Then what is this test? Where was I supposed to sit, Lauren? I told you. The count got messed up. Before the count got messed up, where was my place card? She did not answer. Was there one? Of course there was. Where? I don't remember. Nathan handled the cards. That was a lie. Not because I knew who had handled them, but because Lauren had selected the exact ribbon color on Celia's truffle box. Nothing about that table had escaped her attention. The stairwell door opened on her end. Music and voices rushed into the call. Lauren? Nathan said faintly. I'll be there in a minute. The door shut again. She spoke quickly. I cannot do this right now. We're about to serve dinner. I hope it's good. You're punishing me because the restaurant made a mistake. The restaurant didn't ask me to hold everyone's coats. You offered to help. You put a coat in my arms, and you said yes. That stopped me. She was right. I had said yes. I had said yes to the first coat and the second and the third. I had said yes with my hands, if not my mouth, every time someone added weight. Lauren heard my silence and mistook it for surrender. Can we please not ruin tonight over this? She asked. I thought of Judith being guided to her seat, of Nathan rubbing his eyebrow, of the $20 bill in Philip's pocket. I'm not there, Lauren. Whatever happens next is yours. I ended the call and turned off my phone. The drive home took 35 minutes because of the sleet. I kept the radio off. At a red light, I reached over and peeled the damp tissue away from the photograph. There we were. Lauren barefoot on the chair, me with the needle. Her wedding dress gathered in my lap. Frank's photograph had caught a mixing bowl on the counter, a bottle of sparkling wine beside the sink, and 3 strawberries on a chipped plate. The kitchen looked crowded and alive. I touched the glass with one finger. You should have warned me, I told Frank. The light turned green. Ruth's porch light was on when I pulled into my driveway. So was mine. She had a key and no respect for boundaries, a combination that had occasionally saved me from frozen pipes. I found her in my kitchen, wearing slippers and eating crackers over the sink. You're back early, she said. So observant. Her eyes traveled from my coat to the photograph in my hand. What happened? I developed an allergy to anniversaries. Elaine. I put the photograph on the table and began removing my earrings. Do you want tea? She asked. No. Bourbon? No. A shovel and an alibi? That got a sound out of me, not quite a laugh. Ruth set down the crackers. Who am I mad at? I don't want you to be mad. That wasn't the question. I slipped the pearls into my coat pocket because I did not trust my fingers with the velvet box. Lauren needed someone to handle the coats, I said. Then they were short a chair. Ruth waited. They weren't short my chair until extra guests came, I added. She kept waiting. She asked me to eat outside the dining room. Ruth's face went perfectly still. She did not. She was stressed. Do not. The sharpness in her voice surprised me. Do not stand in your own kitchen and make her excuses before you've even taken off your coat. I looked down. I was still wearing it. Ruth came closer and unbuttoned the top button as if I were incapable. Did you leave? Yes. Good. She says I embarrassed her. Better. Ruth? What? I'm supposed to be diplomatic at 11 minutes past 9? It's not even 8. Then I'm ahead of schedule. She took my coat and hung it over the back of a chair. The pearls in the pocket clicked softly against the wood. My phone, still turned off, felt heavy in my purse. Ruth made tea without asking again. She put too much honey in mine and sat across from me while I told her the parts I could say without my voice changing. I did not mention Lauren turning away when Philip tipped me. I was not ready to hear someone else's reaction to that. At 10, Ruth went home after extracting a promise that I would not call Lauren to apologize. I wasn't planning to. You plan lots of foolish things quietly. Good night, Ruth. She pointed 2 fingers at her own eyes and then at me. I'm watching you. From across the hedge? I have binoculars. I know. The whole block knows. After she left, I washed 2 clean cups and wiped crumbs from a counter that did not need wiping. Then I took the pearls from my coat and returned them to their box. There were 9 missed calls when I finally turned on my phone. 4 from Lauren, 2 from Nathan, 1 from Celia, 1 from Judith, 1 from Aaron. That last one told me Lauren had not waited until dessert to begin telling the story. I listened to no messages. I carried the framed photograph to my bedroom and placed it face down on the dresser. At 9 the next morning, my doorbell rang. Lauren stood on the porch in yesterday's makeup, holding a white bakery box tied with string. I brought cake, she said. She said it the way other people might say they had brought peace. The bakery box was large enough to contain several apologies, but Lauren held it with both hands and offered none. I opened the storm door. You're not dressed, she said. I was wearing gray sweatpants and one of Frank's old flannel shirts. I wasn't expecting the press. Can I come in? I stepped aside. She walked directly to the kitchen, as she always did, and set the box in the center of the table. Her hair was pulled into a low, uneven knot. She wore black leggings, a long coat, and the same mascara that had framed her eyes at dinner. A faint gray shadow had collected beneath each one. You slept in your makeup, I said. I didn't sleep. You'll get an infection. I'm not here to discuss my eyelashes. That makes 2 of us. She untied the string around the box, pulled back the lid, and revealed half of a 3-tiered white cake. One side had been cut away so neatly that the remaining gold numbers read only 5. We brought too much home, she said. It's almond with raspberry filling. I know. I helped you choose it. She reached into the drawer beside my sink for a knife. Coffee? She asked. It was my kitchen, my coffee pot, and my daughter behaving as hostess. I understood the choreography. She would cut cake. I would make coffee. We would complain about the restaurant. She would say she had been overwhelmed. I would admit I could have handled things differently. By the second cup, we would be discussing whether Judith had liked the corsage, and the evening would become a family mishap no one had intended. I don't want cake, I said. The knife stopped against the cardboard. You always want cake. Not at 9 in the morning. You ate German chocolate for breakfast on your birthday. That was my birthday. So now cake has office hours. I sat at the table. Why are you here, Lauren? She left the knife in the box. I thought we should talk face to face. All right. She remained standing. Are you going to offer me coffee? No. Her eyebrows lifted. The refusal was so small I almost felt silly making it, yet it changed the room. Lauren took off her coat and draped it across the chair beside her. I'm trying, she said. To do what? To fix this. You brought leftovers. I came over after getting home at 1:30 in the morning. I could have called. You did. Several times. You didn't answer. I didn't want to. She sat across from me and rubbed at a smudge of gold icing on the box. Last night was supposed to be special. I'm sure it was. See, that tone? You're acting like I deliberately set out to hurt you. Did I say that? You don't have to. You left in the middle of dinner. Celia moved her place card to the lounge and said she would eat out there if you came back. That sounded like Celia. Did I come back? No, because you turned off your phone. So where did Celia eat? At the table, eventually. She barely spoke to me. That must have been uncomfortable. It was uncomfortable for everyone. Nathan had to explain why my mother left before dinner. What did he say? That you weren't feeling well. I looked at her. What was he supposed to say? She asked. The truth tends to require less rehearsal. The truth is that there was a seating problem and you got upset. The truth is that I was asked to guard coats in the hallway because you could not bring yourself to inconvenience anyone else. Her jaw tightened. It wasn't a hallway. You're right. The sofa was velvet. I told you they could bring you a plate. That is not helping your case. It was temporary. You keep saying that as if temporary humiliation is a complimentary service. She pushed away from the table, stood, and crossed to the counter. Lauren had never been good at staying seated when she felt cornered. As a teenager, she used to reorganize entire shelves during arguments. Once, after I told her she couldn't borrow the car, she alphabetized our spices so violently that Frank and I had to leave the kitchen to laugh. Now she opened my cabinet, took out a mug, and closed the door harder than necessary. Fine, she said. I handled it badly. I waited. I was stressed. Dan and Marcy showed up after telling Nathan they couldn't make it. The restaurant refused to add a chair. People were arriving. The coats were everywhere. And I was available. You were helping. There is a difference. She filled the mug with water and drank it standing at the sink. I asked for one favor. You asked for several. Hold the coats. Watch the coats. Give up my seat. Eat later. Stay quiet about it. I did not ask you to stay quiet. You're here because I didn't. Her mug touched the counter with a hard little click. I'm here because you're my mother. That did not appear to matter last night. Oh, come on, there it was. The phrase people used when they wanted a hurt to become embarrassing through sheer impatience. Lauren turned around. You know you matter to me. In private, yes. Her face shifted. What is that supposed to mean? It means you call me when you're frightened. You call me when you're angry with Nathan. You call me when the oven makes a noise you don't recognize. But when you're with people you want to impress, I become useful scenery. That is not true. A man tipped me. She stopped moving. The room went very quiet. Who? Philip. Philip Crane gave you money? He thought I worked there. Oh my God. She covered her mouth, but I couldn't tell whether she was horrified for me or for Philip. You saw him do it. No, I didn't. Our eyes met. I saw you talking to him. I didn't see money. You looked at my hand. I was greeting Caroline. You turned away. I did not know what was happening. I studied her face. Lauren could lie well when she prepared. Unexpected lies showed up in the muscles around her mouth. Suppose that's true, I said. When Judith handed over her coat, why didn't you ask her to watch the pile? That's different. How? She was wearing a corsage. For one strange second, neither of us said anything. Then I laughed. Lauren's cheeks reddened. That's not what I mean. I hope not. She was a guest of honor. And I was what? You were also a guest of honor. Without a chair. The chair was a last-minute disaster. Where was my place card? She looked toward the window. I asked you last night. I know. You said Nathan handled them. He did. Where was mine? She folded her arms. On the table. I walked around the whole table. Because I moved it. There it was, plain and small. When? When Dan and Marcy arrived. Whose card replaced mine? Marcy's. And where did mine go? I put it in my bag. I pictured my name in Lauren's small satin evening purse, tucked beside lipstick and car keys, while I stood under coats. Why mine? Because Dan was seated near Nathan's work group and Marcy needed to sit with him. Everyone else had a reason to be where they were. I let that settle. Lauren heard it too. Her arms loosened, but she did not apologize. So you did sort it out, I said. I thought the restaurant would add another place. When they wouldn't, you still had a choice. What choice? Tell 2 guests who drove 2 hours that they couldn't eat? You could have given me your chair. She stared at me. I hadn't expected her to do it. I had not even wanted it. But her astonishment answered something. That would have been ridiculous, she said. It was my anniversary. Yes. Nathan and I were hosting. Yes. I couldn't sit outside. No, you couldn't. Her face hardened again. So that's what you wanted? For me to leave my own dinner? I wanted you to find the idea of leaving me outside just as ridiculous. The anger drained from her expression so quickly that for a moment she looked tired rather than young. Then she picked up her coat. I knew this was a mistake. Coming here? Coming here while you're determined to be wounded. I stood, too. I did not have to work very hard. She shoved one arm into her coat sleeve and missed. The lining twisted. I had the old impulse to step around the table and fix it. My feet actually shifted before I stopped them. Lauren fought the sleeve into place. Dad would have hated this, she said. It was a cruel thing, but not an accidental one. I looked toward the doorway. The framed photograph was upstairs, face down on my dresser. Your father would have come into the hallway to find me. She flinched. Don't use him against me, she said. You brought him into the room. He was part of the dinner. Nathan gave a beautiful toast about him, which you would know if you'd stayed. To hear my dead husband thanked from behind a pile of coats? Her eyes filled, and that almost broke me. Lauren's tears had always activated something in my body before they reached my mind. My hands warmed. My voice softened. Every old instinct said to cross the room. I held the back of the chair instead. She blinked the tears away angrily. What do you want from me? I want you to stop telling me what you meant and look at what you did. I said I handled it badly. That is a review, not an apology. I'm sorry the night got out of control. The night did not do anything to me. Her mouth opened, then closed. She turned toward the door. I could have let her go. Instead, I remembered the brass key in the blue dish beside the telephone. Wait. Hope flashed across her face before she could hide it. I went to the dish, took out the key to her house, and placed it on the kitchen table. What is that? She asked. You know what it is. You're giving back my key. Yes. Why? Because Thursday's plumber is not my appointment. She stared at the key. You said you would let him in. I'm letting you know 4 days ahead that I won't. This is punishment. No. This is me paying attention to how often helping you requires me to disappear from my own life. It's one plumber. It's not one plumber. Her gaze moved from the key to the cake, as if both objects had turned hostile. So what now? You're never helping me again? I'll help when you ask, and I choose to. I will not be assigned. I did ask. Sometimes you tell me what I'm going to do in the shape of a question. She picked up the key, but did not put it in her pocket. What about Sunday dinner? I'm not hosting it. Aaron is driving in. Then he can come here and make dinner. You know he won't. Then he will learn something useful. Lauren gave a short, breathless laugh. You're blowing up the whole family over a chair. No, I'm no longer holding everything together while pretending it weighs nothing. She put the key in her coat pocket and walked to the front door. Her hand remained on the knob for several seconds. I don't recognize you right now, she said. I wanted to tell her I didn't recognize myself either. Instead, I said, that may be because you've never had to look at me when I said no. She left without the cake. I watched through the window as she crossed the yard. At her car, she stopped with one hand on the roof, her shoulders moving once beneath her coat. I could have opened the door. I could have called her back and cut 2 slices and made the coffee. My hand rested on the latch until she drove away. The cake remained on my kitchen table like evidence from a celebration I had failed to attend. I carried it to the counter, then changed my mind and put it in the refrigerator. Throwing it away would have been dramatic. Eating it would have felt worse. My phone rang before I finished wiping the table. Aaron. I let it ring. A minute later, it rang again. Ruth's face appeared at my side window, framed by the curtain. She pointed at the back door. I shook my head. She pointed again. When I still didn't move, she disappeared. The key turned in the lock. You cannot pretend not to see someone after making direct eye contact, she said, coming into the kitchen. That sounds like a rule you invented. All rules are invented. She took one look at me and stopped. She came over. How do you know? I saw her car. You were watching through binoculars? I was taking out recycling. You're recycling lives beside your back door, not in my hedge. I like the scenic route. Her eyes went to the refrigerator. Ruth had a peculiar ability to sense food through solid surfaces. Did she bring cake? Yes. What kind? Almond. With raspberry? Yes. She has excellent instincts for a woman behaving terribly. I leaned against the sink. She tried to apologize. Did she? No. Ruth nodded as if that was the answer she expected. Then she held up my spare key between 2 fingers. Would you like this back? I stared at it. She placed it on the counter instead of making me answer immediately. I know I barge in, she said. I also know there's a difference between being welcome and assuming you'll always be useful to me. If I've crossed it, tell me. The offer embarrassed me more than her intrusion ever had. You have not crossed it. Good. She returned the key to her pocket. Because your side window has a terrible angle. I laughed despite myself. Cake, she said. It's 9:30 in the morning. You told Lauren Cake has office hours? How do you know that? I don't. I'm guessing based on your personalities. She opened the refrigerator, took out the box, and cut 2 narrow slices. The white icing had begun to absorb pink streaks from the filling. She handed me a plate. I don't want any. Then hold it until you do. I looked down at the cake. Poor choice of words, she said. Set it wherever you please. We ate standing at the counter. It was very good, which felt insulting. My phone rang a 3rd time. Aaron again. Ruth glanced at the screen. He persistent. Only when someone else is upset. You going to answer? Eventually. Then I'll leave before I become involved in a family matter. You entered through a locked door. A neighbor matter. She rinsed her plate and set it in the dishwasher. At the back door, she turned. Do not confuse feeling awful with being wrong. I don't. You do. Frequently. After she left, I took my phone into the living room and listened to the messages from the night before. Nathan's first message was brief. Elaine, it's Nathan. Please call me. Lauren's pretty upset. Not, are you all right? Not, I'm sorry. His second came 40 minutes later. I know tonight didn't go the way anybody wanted. I'd like to explain what happened. There was something almost comforting about the way both messages avoided naming a single choice. Judith sounded confused. Elaine, darling, I heard you weren't feeling well. I hope you're all right. I wish you had told me you were leaving. I would have come with you. I sat with that one for a while. Maybe she would have. Maybe she would have asked why no one had set a place for me, and Lauren would have found a chair in 30 seconds. Or maybe Judith would have stood in the lounge holding her cream coat, politely urging me not to make the evening difficult. I had no way to know because no one had told her. Celia's message was the only one that asked what I needed. Mrs. Mercer, please tell me you got home. You don't have to call. Text one word. Also, for the record, dinner was aggressively mediocre. I texted, home, thank you. 3 dots appeared immediately. Good, I'm still mad. I wrote, get some sleep. She replied, bossy. Aaron's message began with a sigh. Mom, Lauren called me. I don't know what happened, but she's a mess. Call me before this turns into a whole thing." I played it twice, mostly because of the phrase "before this turns into a whole thing." The whole thing, apparently, had not been me standing outside the dinner. The whole thing would be my refusal to disappear quietly afterward. When Aaron called again, I answered. Finally, he said, "Are you okay?" "I'm fine. What happened? Didn't Lauren tell you?" She told me her version. What was her version? That there was a problem with seating, you got insulted, and you walked out. That is impressively efficient. Mom, I was asked to hold everyone's coats. Then Lauren gave my chair to another guest and asked me to eat in the lounge while I watched their belongings. Silence. "Well," he said, "that sounds bad. It was not my favorite evening. What does Lauren say? That I embarrassed her. She was stressed." "Were you there?" "No." "Then why are you explaining her to me?" "I'm not explaining her. I know how she gets when she plans these things." "So do I." He sighed again. Aaron sighed like Frank, loudly and with his whole chest. When he was young, the sound had seemed borrowed from an older man. Now, at 39, he had grown into it. "She called me crying at midnight," he said. "I didn't ask her to do that. She thinks you're cutting her out of your life." I gave back her house key. "That's not a small gesture. It's a small key. You know what I mean." I told her I won't wait for her plumber on Thursday. "You love being there for the repair people." I looked at the phone. "Aaron." "What?" "No one loves waiting for repair people. You always say you don't mind. I also say traffic is fine when I arrive late. It does not mean I spend my free time seeking congestion." He gave a reluctant laugh, and I felt the old relief that came whenever humor made a difficult conversation easier. Usually, that was the moment I surrendered something. This time, I let the silence return. "What about Sunday?" he asked. "You can still come." "Lauren says you canceled dinner." I said I'm not hosting. I'm driving 3 hours. I'm aware of the geography. So what are we supposed to eat? I glanced toward the kitchen, where his sister's anniversary cake sat in my refrigerator. "You are a grown man surrounded by restaurants and grocery stores. You always make pot roast when I visit. Then you should have watched more carefully. Come on, Mom." There it was again. "What were you planning to bring?" I asked. "I don't know. Wine?" "What kind?" I hadn't gotten that far. Dinner was 4 days away. I was going to ask Lauren, and she was going to ask me. He went quiet. "Aaron, I would like to see you. Come Saturday if you want, sleep in your room. I'll make coffee. But I am not planning. Shopping for cooking and cleaning up a family dinner so the two of you can spend 3 hours convincing me I'm too sensitive. I wasn't planning to do that. You called before hearing what happened. I was trying to help." "Who?" The question landed harder than I intended. He breathed out slowly. "The family. The family is not a person, Aaron. You know what Dad used to say. Somebody has to bend." I closed my eyes. Frank had said that, usually while touching my shoulder, usually after Lauren slammed a door or Aaron stopped returning calls. He had meant it lovingly, believing flexibility was my strength. "Did you notice who he always said it to?" I asked. Aaron did not answer. "I don't want everybody fighting," he said at last. "Neither do I. Then one of you needs to make the first move. Why are you calling me?" "Because Lauren won't listen when she's like this. So I should apologize because I'm easier to pressure. I didn't say apologize." "What should I do?" "Call her. Tell her you love her. Tell her you know the dinner was important and things got out of hand. Then what should she tell me?" "I'm not defending her." "You keep saying that while defending her." He made a frustrated sound. "You both do this. You ask me questions until every answer is wrong. Then answer one honestly. If Lauren had put Judith in that lounge, would Nathan have finished his toast?" Aaron said nothing. That silence told me he had finally pictured it. "I'll come Saturday," he said. "We'll figure out food. I look forward to seeing you. And Mom, yes? Please don't turn this into some permanent war. I walked out of a restaurant, Aaron. I have not invaded a country. I'm serious. So am I." After we hung up, I took the photograph from my dresser and placed it upright on the living room bookshelf. I did not want the last image of Lauren in my house to be her walking away from my door. The rest of that day moved badly. I started laundry and forgot to add detergent. I opened the refrigerator 4 times without wanting anything. At 6:15, I carried my phone into the kitchen, because that was when Lauren usually called. It did not ring. At 6:20, I turned the ringer all the way up. At 6:30, I put the phone face down. The silence became part of the furniture over the next few days. It sat beside me in the mornings and followed me upstairs at night. Lauren sent one text on Thursday, "Plumber rescheduled." I replied, "Good." Neither of us added anything. Saturday afternoon, a car door slammed outside. I looked through the window and saw Aaron coming up the walk with a duffel bag over one shoulder. In each hand, he carried a bulging grocery sack. When I opened the door, he lifted them slightly. "I bought ingredients," he said. "For what?" He looked into the bags as if the answer might be printed on top. "I was hoping you'd know." I stepped aside and let him carry the bags into the kitchen. Aaron put them on the table, dropped his duffel by the stairs, and hugged me. He smelled like cold air, highway coffee, and the peppermint gum he had chewed since college. "You look tired," he said. "You look hungry." "I had a protein bar." "When?" "Indiana." "You crossed an entire state on a protein bar?" "There was coffee." "That is not food." He smiled. "There she is." The words were affectionate. They still made me aware of how quickly I had started assessing what I could feed him. I opened the first grocery sack. Inside were a long package of spaghetti, a jar of salsa, 2 red onions, a bunch of asparagus, chicken breasts, and a can of condensed mushroom soup. I looked in the second bag. Potatoes, shredded cheese, a loaf of sourdough, a chuck roast, bananas, and something labeled artisan bone broth. "What were you planning?" I asked. I panicked. "Were you shopping during an earthquake?" "I got the roast." "That's the important part. You also got salsa. You like salsa." "I do." "Not on pot roast. You haven't tried it." "I survived the 70s. I have tried enough." He began unpacking with exaggerated confidence. "The woman at the meat counter said chuck roast. She was right. I knew that. You just said she told you. I confirmed it independently." He held up the asparagus. "This looked healthy." "It is." "Can it go with the roast?" "It can be in the same house." Aaron set it down. "I drove 3 hours to be mocked. You were mocked over the phone for free." He laughed, and the tension in his shoulders eased. Mine did too. Humor was our family's soft entrance into every room we did not want to enter, honestly. I put the bone broth in the pantry. "Lauren isn't coming tomorrow," he said. There it was. I kept my back to him. "Did she tell you that?" "She texted while I was driving." "What did she say? That she wasn't going to sit through a meal where you made her feel guilty?" "I wasn't planning to make her feel anything. She thinks you're trying to teach her a lesson. I was planning not to cook. To Lauren, those may be the same thing." I turned around. "Do you agree with her?" Aaron picked up the potatoes and examined the bag as if checking for instructions. I think giving back the key scared her. Why? Because it felt final. It opened her front door, not my heart. "Can you not talk in lines for 1 minute? I'm not trying to. You do it when you want the last word." That was true enough to irritate me. I sat at the table. All right, no lines. He sat across from me, the potatoes between us. "She thinks you're done with her," he said. I told her exactly what I was done with. People don't hear nuance when they're hurt. I managed to hear quite a lot from the coat pile. His expression tightened. That was a line. It was also a location. "Mom, what do you want me to say?" "I don't know. Something that makes this less awful. I love your sister. I miss her. I'm still not apologizing for leaving." Aaron rubbed both hands over his face. "I told her it looked bad," he said. "It was bad even when no one was looking." "I know. Do you?" He dropped his hands. "I'm here, aren't I?" "You were coming anyway. With groceries, technically." He leaned back. "Okay. Show me what I bought wrong." You didn't buy anything wrong. You bought too many possibilities. That sounds suspiciously kind. I'm trying not to talk in lines. We put away everything except the roast, onions, potatoes, and broth. Aaron wanted to cook immediately, though it was barely 4 o'clock and the dinner he was supposedly preparing would not happen until the next day. It has to sit overnight, he said. It's beef, not a witness in protective custody. Don't you marinate it? No. I've seen you rub things on it. Salt, pepper, garlic. Where's the recipe? In my head. He pointed at me. That is how family knowledge gets lost. Do you know how to use the Notes app on your phone? He took it out. Proceed. I dictated the ingredients. He typed with his thumbs, asking questions after nearly every line. How much garlic? Enough. That's not a measurement. 4 cloves. What size cloves? Garlic size. You're doing it again. I took a recipe card from the drawer and wrote down actual amounts. When I handed it to him, he looked startled. This is Dad's handwriting on the back. Frank had once used the card to calculate how many boards he needed for shelves. A row of measurements ran beneath a grease stain. Turn it over, I said. Aaron ran his thumb across the penciled numbers. Why didn't you ever make him cook this? I didn't make your father do much of anything. That may be the family problem. He said it lightly, but neither of us laughed. We made sandwiches with the sourdough and ate at the kitchen table. Aaron talked about traffic, an argument with his landlord, and a woman named Denise he had been seeing for 3 months, but had not mentioned because he did not want me to make a face. What face? The interested face. I have 1 face. No, you have at least 9. The worst is the quiet one. I'm sitting here quietly. Exactly. It was almost comfortable. Then he noticed the photograph on the living room shelf. He carried his plate in and stood in front of it. I've never seen this. I found it recently. Dad took it? Yes. He picked up the frame. Lauren looks terrified. She was. The strap had snapped. You're both laughing. That came after the terror. He turned the frame over, examining the stand. Was this what you brought to the dinner? I nodded. Did she open it? No, she didn't know what it was. No. He returned it to the shelf more carefully than necessary. Philip tipped me, I said. Aaron turned. What? The silver-haired man at the dinner. He thought I was working the coat check. You didn't tell me that. You didn't ask many questions. His face changed. Did Lauren see? She says she didn't understand what was happening. Do you believe her? I believe she saw enough to choose not to look closer. Aaron walked back into the kitchen and sat down. How much? $20. What did you do with it? Put it back in his pocket. Did he say anything later? I was not there later. He pressed his lips together. That's why you left? No, I stayed after that. Why? The question was honest, not accusing. I looked at the remains of my sandwich. Because leaving when something first hurts can feel like overreacting. So I wait for it to hurt enough that no one could argue. That sounds exhausting. It is. Is that what you think we make you do? I think I taught you that I would. He looked down at the table. The next morning, Aaron came into the kitchen carrying the recipe card and wearing Frank's old apron. The apron read, "Kiss the cook," though years of washing had faded the K until it looked like an instruction to miss him. I'm ready, he said. For what? To braise. You sound dangerous. He did not let me touch the roast. I sat at the table with coffee while he salted the meat, chopped onions, and swore at garlic skins. He asked questions, and I answered. When he reached for a thin nonstick pan, I pointed to the Dutch oven. You were going to let me ruin it? You said you were cooking. Guidance is allowed. It is when requested. He gave me a look, but switched pans. By noon, the roast was in the oven. Aaron had used every cutting board I owned and somehow put pepper in the silverware drawer. He cleaned without being asked, though he had to ask where I kept the dish towels after 39 years of opening the same drawer. At 1, his phone rang. Lauren's name appeared on the counter. He carried it into the living room. I could hear his side of the conversation through the doorway. No, she hasn't said anything. A pause. I don't know. The roast is in. Another pause. No, I'm not taking sides. Longer silence. I didn't say you did it on purpose. He lowered his voice, but not enough. You still did it, Lore. The house seemed to listen with me. He returned to the kitchen several minutes later and placed his phone face down. She's not coming, he said. I heard. She says I'm ganging up on her. Are you? I said what happened was wrong. I lifted my coffee. Be careful. That sounds like a side. Very funny. Did she ask about me? His hesitation answered before he did. She asked if you were still angry. What did you say? I said you made me write down a recipe. I smiled. Coward. Absolutely. We ate at 3 because neither of us could wait any longer. The roast was slightly dry at the edges and perfect in the middle. Aaron had forgotten to cook the asparagus, so it remained healthy in the refrigerator. He set 3 places out of habit. When he noticed, he removed one without comment. The empty side of the table felt larger after that. Aaron left before dark. He packed 2 portions of roast into containers, one for himself and one he said he might drop at Lauren's if she agreed to see him. At the door, he hugged me longer than he had when he arrived. I still think you should call her, he said. I know, but I don't think you should apologize for leaving. It was not everything. It was not nothing. After his car disappeared, I washed the 2 plates he had missed and found the recipe card tucked beneath the salt shaker. On the bottom, under my handwriting, he had added, Ask Mom. Don't assume. At 6:15, the phone rang. My heart lifted before I could stop it. Nathan's name appeared on the screen. I answered. Elaine, he said. Can I come by tomorrow? I waited. Alone, he added. What time? I asked. There was a pause, as if he had expected me to refuse. Whenever works for you. 2. 2 is good. Does Lauren know you're coming? Not yet. Tell her. I will. Before you come. Another pause. All right. I hung up and stood in the kitchen holding the phone. Through the doorway, the 3rd place setting Aaron had removed seemed to remain on the table anyway. Nathan had been part of my family for 15 years. I had sat beside him in an emergency waiting room when Lauren needed her appendix removed, coached him through the first birthday after Frank died, and listened without interrupting the night he admitted he sometimes felt lonely inside his own marriage. Whenever he and Lauren fought, he called me reasonable. I was beginning to dislike the word. At 1:50 the next afternoon, his car pulled up. He sat behind the wheel for almost a minute before getting out. He wore dark trousers, a blue sweater, and the expression of a man about to speak at a funeral where the deceased had specifically warned him not to make it about himself. When I opened the door, he held up an empty plastic container. Aaron brought us roast. I heard he might. I washed this, an encouraging milestone. He almost smiled. Inside, Nathan removed his coat without being asked and hung it on the hook beside the door. The care he took with it was so obvious that I decided not to comment. I led him into the kitchen. Coffee? I asked. His eyebrows rose. I am capable of offering coffee without surrendering my position. I didn't say anything. You made a face. I thought you only had one. Aaron is spreading misinformation. I poured 2 cups. Nathan took his black, though I remembered when he used to add so much sugar that Frank called it breakfast syrup. We sat across from each other. He placed the clean container between us. How are you? He asked. People keep asking that as if there's an answer that will rescue them. I'm not looking to be rescued. Good. He rubbed his eyebrow with his thumb. Don't do that, I said. His hand dropped. Do what? That thing you did at the restaurant. What thing? You touch your eyebrow when you know something you don't want to say. He looked down at his coffee. Lauren says Aaron took your side. Aaron said what she did was wrong. To Lauren, that's taking your side. That appears to be a popular opinion. She feels like everyone is talking about her. Are they? Celia hasn't answered her calls. Mom asked what really happened, and Lauren thinks Celia told her. Did she? I did. I waited. Not at first, he said. At first, I said you didn't feel well. I heard. My mother knew something was off. You wouldn't leave without saying goodbye to her. She called me. I know. She called again after Aaron visited you. I told her there was a seating problem. A seating problem, and that Lauren asked you to wait outside. With the coats. Yes. What did Judith say? Nathan stared into his cup. She asked why nobody gave you a chair, a gifted logician. She was upset. With Lauren? With both of us. The both mattered. Why are you here, Nathan? He lifted his head. To apologize. All right, I'm sorry. He waited as if the words required a response. For what? I asked. For how the night went. The night has excellent representation. Everyone is apologizing for it. For not speaking up. When? When the restaurant said they couldn't add a chair. You knew before then. His eyes met mine. I saw you touch your eyebrow when I asked where I was sitting. I knew Dan and Marcy had taken the last 2 places. You knew Lauren moved my card. Yes. When did you know? When they arrived. Did you say anything? I asked her if the restaurant could squeeze in another setting. And when she said they would, I believed her. No, you hoped I would make it easy. Nathan leaned back. I did, he said. The lack of defense surprised me enough that I said nothing. He went on. I knew if they couldn't add a place, you'd tell us not to worry about it. You always do. That was your plan? It wasn't a plan. Plans are getting unfairly blamed in this family. Apparently, nothing counts if no one wrote it down first. You're right. I took a sip of coffee. It had already cooled. Don't agree quickly, I said. It makes me suspicious. I'm not trying to get out of this. Why didn't you come into the lounge? I should have. That was not my question. Nathan looked toward the living room. From his chair, he could see the silver frame on the bookshelf. Those people mattered to Lauren, he said. Why? Some were from my firm. Some were friends we haven't known long. She wanted the evening to feel effortless. Effortless things require the most hidden effort. I know. Apparently. He flinched. I felt mean, then angry at myself for feeling mean. Nathan folded his hands around the cup. When we first moved into that neighborhood, Lauren felt like everybody could tell she didn't grow up the way they did. What way is that? With catered parties and wine rooms and mothers who own separate dishes for 12 kinds of cheese. I own a board. Cheese survives. I know it sounds ridiculous. It sounds frightened. It is. She thinks people see every mistake. So she made sure they saw me as staff. I don't think that's what she intended. Neither did Philip. Nathan's face tightened. Aaron had told him. He feels terrible, he said. I'm not interested in Philip's emotional recovery. He honestly thought. I know what he thought. He made it very clear. Lauren says she didn't see him tip you. What do you say? I say, she saw me standing there with money in my hand, and looking closer would have required her to interrupt a conversation. Nathan was quiet. What do you say? I asked again. I saw it. The words were barely audible. I set down my cup. You saw him? Yes. Did you know what he was doing? Not until after. I saw him put something in your hand. Then you looked at Lauren. I thought she would handle it. You thought the woman pretending not to see would handle it. I should have come over. You keep telling me what you should have done as if you're requesting partial credit. He looked older than he had at the restaurant. Not dramatically older, just less protected by good lighting and a tailored suit. I was embarrassed, he said. For me, for all of it. For him, for Lauren, for myself. So you chose the version of embarrassment that required nothing from you. Yes. He said it without moving his eyes from mine. The simple answer removed the argument I had been prepared to have. I looked at his hands. There was a pale line where his wedding ring had turned during the drive, the band pressed slightly off-center. Lauren thinks I came here to defend her, he said. Did you? At first? And now? I think I came because I wanted you to make her feel better. Honest. She hasn't slept. She keeps going over the dinner, trying to prove there was no good option. There was no perfect option. She hears those as the same thing. She had many bad choices. She gave me the worst one because I had trained her to expect I would accept it. You keep saying you trained us. I don't want to pretend I appeared in that lounge by accident. I spent years making everyone's comfort my job. That does not excuse what she did. It does explain why she believed she could. Nathan turned the empty plastic container a quarter turn. I benefited from it too, he said. Yes. You answered repair calls. You hosted holidays. You listened when Lauren was furious with me, then helped her calm down before I came home. Yes, sometimes I called you because I didn't want to have the conversation myself. I know, I told myself you liked being needed. I did. That was the part no one wanted because it made the story less clean. I liked knowing the answer, I said. I liked being the first person called. After Frank died, being useful was easier than being lonely. Nathan nodded. But liking some of it did not make all of it free, I added, and it did not mean you could seat me with the coats. No. He looked toward the photograph again. Is that from our wedding? Yes. Can I see it? I brought it from the shelf and handed it to him. Nathan smiled as soon as he saw Lauren standing barefoot on the kitchen chair. I remember that dress emergency. She told me someone had to rebuild the whole strap. I made 6 stitches. She said you saved the wedding. She enjoyed scale. He touched the corner of the frame. Was this the package on the side table? It was. You took it with you. Yes. She would love it. I thought she might. Can I bring it to her? No. His eyes rose. It is not a tool, I said. You don't get to carry evidence that I love her home so she can avoid asking. He handed the photograph back. I don't know what to do, he said. It was the first thing he had said that sounded entirely like himself. Go home. That hasn't been going well. Go home and tell the truth anyway. She'll think you turned me against her. I did not ask you to come. I know. And I am not asking you to fight with your wife on my behalf. What are you asking? That you stop helping her turn what happened into weather. He nodded slowly. You need to tell her about this conversation yourself, I said. Today, I won't be part of a secret meeting. I told her I was coming before I left. Does she know why? I said I owed you an apology. And? She said you'd make me feel guilty, did I? Yes, at least she got one thing right. He laughed once quietly. At the front door, he put on his coat and stood with one hand on the knob. I really am sorry, Elaine. This time, he did not add what for. I believe you, I said. Does that help? Not yet. He accepted that. After he left, I washed our cups and put Aaron's container in the cabinet. At 6:14, my phone rang. Lauren. I answered before the second ring. What did you say to my husband? She asked. I told him the truth, I said. Your truth. The one with the coats and the missing chair. He came home acting like he'd committed a felony. That seems excessive. He said he saw Philip give you money. He did. He says he knew you were being mistaken for staff and did nothing. That is also true. Why didn't you tell me he saw? Why would that have made what you did better? It wouldn't. But you let me sit here believing Nathan and I agreed about what happened. You agreed not to examine it. Her breath came sharply through the phone. You're enjoying this. No, everyone finally thinks I'm horrible and you get to be the wounded mother who asks for nothing. I asked for a chair. Stop saying that. I will not. The line went quiet except for movement on her end. A drawer opening, something set down hard, footsteps across a floor I had helped her choose. Nathan says he used you, she said. I said he benefited from me being useful. He told me he called you whenever we fought because you could calm me down. He did. So you two discussed me behind my back for years, and now suddenly I'm the one who treats you badly? There was truth inside the accusation. I did not like its arrival, but I recognized it. Sometimes Nathan called because he was worried about you, I said. Sometimes he called because he did not want to face your anger himself. I should have told him to speak directly to you more often. You always took his side. I did not. Yes, you did. You called it being fair. Lauren, no. Every time I complained, you asked what I had said first. You made me explain his point of view. You told me marriage meant choosing which things mattered. My hand tightened around the phone. Had I said that? It sounded like me. It sounded like something Frank and I had believed after enough years together to forget how those words felt during the early ones. Maybe I defended him when you needed me to listen, I said. She went silent. It was not the answer she expected. I'm sorry for that, I said. You can apologize for that, but not for walking out? Yes. You don't even have to think about it? I have thought about little else. She made a frustrated sound. This is what you do. You pick the one thing you can admit and then you become impossible everywhere else. I learned that from you. Great. Very mature. Not my best moment. There was another pause. For a few seconds, I could hear her breathing. It sounded close and familiar, like all those evenings when she had called from bed and kept me on the line while Nathan slept beside her. What did you tell him about me? She asked. That you were frightened of being judged by his friends. He told you that, he did, and you sat there talking about my insecurities. We talked about his cowardice. Did that make you feel better? No. What do you want, Mom? Do you want him to hate me too? Nathan does not hate you. He's sleeping in the guest room. The information landed between us, heavier than I wanted it to be. Because of me? I asked. Because we can't speak without fighting. Then stop speaking about me. She laughed bitterly. You blew up our anniversary dinner, and now you want to be left out of the aftermath. I did not blow up your dinner. You left. You keep making my leaving the first action in the story. Because that's when everything became public. There it was again. Not when I was hurt. When people noticed. I don't want your marriage damaged, I said. Well, congratulations. Do not hand me responsibility for what you and Nathan are saying to each other. You were happy to be in the middle when he called you. That was a mistake. He trusted you. He used me to avoid you. I allowed it because being needed made me feel important. None of that was healthy. Now you've had one revelation and the rest of us have to rearrange our lives around it? No. You have to arrange your own life. That is the part upsetting everyone. Her voice broke. You sound like you don't even like me. My answer came too quickly. I love you. That's not what I said. I sat down at the kitchen table. Through the window, evening had turned the snow along the fence blue. A squirrel picked its way across the top rail, its body tense against the cold. I like you when you let me know you, I said. That is such a terrible thing to say. I'm sorry. I said it badly. No, you said it exactly how you meant it. She hung up. I kept the phone at my ear until the empty line began to beep. At 6:15 the following evening, I was in the kitchen before I realized I had gone there to wait for her call. I turned on the radio. A man explained how to roast fennel as if the world had demanded an answer. I took the unused asparagus from the refrigerator, cut off the dry ends, and cooked it for myself. At 6:30, the phone remained silent. Sunday passed without dinner. I did not roast anything. I made soup and ate it from a wide blue bowl while standing at the counter, then forced myself to sit. The next Sunday was worse because I had expected it to be easier. Aaron called on Monday. How are things? He asked. In what category? Lauren. That is not a category. You know what I mean. She and I spoke. It went badly. She said you apologized. For something else. Of course. He was quiet for a moment. Nathan went back to their bedroom. I did not need to know he left it. I thought you'd be relieved. I am. I still don't need bedroom reports. They're talking at least. Good. Lauren's furious with me now. Why? I told her Philip tipping you changed things. It did not change what happened. It changed how I pictured it. I understood that. Pain became more believable when it came with a visual people could not soften. Do not fight with your sister for me, I said. I'm fighting with her for me. What does that mean? He hesitated. I started noticing how often I call you because I want something. You are calling now. I know. I almost hung up. I'm glad you didn't. His voice softened. Me too. That conversation lasted 23 minutes. He did not ask me to solve anything. Celia texted 2 days later. Are you free for lunch Saturday? I typed 3 different refusals. The first said I did not want to come between her and Lauren. The second said I already had plans, which was a lie. The third said perhaps another time. I erased them all and wrote, yes. She chose a small diner across town with cracked red booths and menus that had been laminated sometime during the first Bush administration. When I arrived, Celia was already there drinking coffee. I didn't pick anything fancy, she said. I thought we'd both had enough upholstered trauma. I slid into the booth. Are you avoiding Lauren? Her mouth twisted. Hello to you too. Hello. Are you? She's avoiding me. Why? Because I told her she was wrong. Did you tell her she was a bad person? No. Did you imply it? I may have used the phrase moral sinkhole. Celia. It was late. A waitress poured coffee into my cup and called me honey. I liked her immediately. I don't want to become a reason your friendship ends, I said. You're not. She thinks everyone is choosing sides. She has felt that way since we were 19. If I like a restaurant she hates, I'm choosing the chef's side. Then you know how frightened she gets. I know how controlling she gets when she's frightened. I looked toward the window. Celia leaned forward. Mrs. Mercer loving her doesn't require us to pretend she becomes someone else under stress. She is not only what she did that night. I know. She once drove 6 hours to sit with me after my mother died. She also spent half the drive complaining about my directions. That sounds like her. She stayed 4 days. She filled my freezer and insulted every bra I owned. I smiled into my coffee. That's why I'm mad, Celia said. She can show up. She knows how. She decided you didn't need showing up for. Our food arrived. Celia had ordered pancakes and eggs. I had ordered a grilled cheese sandwich because Ruth claimed diners were morally obligated to serve one correctly. Celia poured syrup with the concentration of a chemist. Did you see what happened after I left? I asked. People asked where you were. Nathan said you got sick. And Lauren? She let him. The answer hurt even though I knew it. Then Judith asked why your coat was gone if you were in the restroom. I looked up. She's observant, Celia said. Also, I might have told her. Did you? I said you didn't have a seat. What did Lauren say? That you'd misunderstood and the restaurant was fixing it. That was untrue. Yes. Did anyone challenge her? Celia put down her fork. I did. Quietly. I was relieved it had not become a spectacle. I was also ashamed of the relief. Some part of me still wanted Lauren protected from the scene she had created. Has she returned your calls? I asked. 1. She said I humiliated her by questioning her in front of Judith. Was anyone allowed to have a feeling that evening except Lauren? Celia grinned. Careful. You're beginning to sound like me. We finished lunch without deciding what Lauren was or what I should do. Celia talked about the dermatologist again. I told her Ruth had threatened to supervise my dating life if I ever developed one. By the time we paid, 2 hours had passed. Outside, Celia hugged me. I'm not replacing her with you, she said into my shoulder. I didn't think you were. She thinks I am. I pulled back. Then make sure you call her too. I have. Call again. Celia studied me. You're still doing it. Doing what? Keeping the road clear for her. I'm asking you not to punish her on my behalf. Those are different things. Yes. She nodded. All right. Ruth was waiting on my porch when I got home, bundled in a red coat and carrying a folded newspaper. How was lunch? She asked. How did you know I had lunch? You wore lipstick. That is not evidence. You only wear that color when someone else is paying. I paid for myself. Then you've changed. She unfolded the newspaper and showed me an advertisement for a touring production at the old theater downtown. "I bought 2 tickets," she said. "For what date?" "Next Thursday. I might have plans." "You don't." "I could." "You declined the last 3 times I asked because Lauren might need you." I looked at the date. Thursday evenings were when Lauren most often asked me to wait at her house for deliveries. I had kept them open without ever naming why. "I'll go," I said. Ruth blinked. That was disturbingly easy. "Would you like me to argue?" "No. I already bought good seats." The theater was drafty, the musical was too loud, and Ruth whispered corrections to the plot until the woman in front of us turned around twice. Afterward, we ate pie at an all-night restaurant and laughed so hard about the leading man's wig that I had to wipe tears from my face. I came home just after 11. My phone lay on the hall table where I had left it. 1 missed call. Lauren, 6:16 p.m. I called her back before taking off my coat. She answered on the 4th ring. "Did you need something?" I asked. A long pause. "No," she said. "I must have called by accident." "All right," I said. She did not hang up. I could hear a television somewhere behind her and the soft clink of a spoon against a bowl. "What did you see?" she asked. "What?" "The show." I leaned against the front door, still wearing my coat. A musical about a woman who inherits an inn and discovers everyone in the town can sing. Was it good? The wig was the best part. Whose wig? The leading man's. It moved independently of his head. A small sound came through the phone. Not quite laughter, but close. "Did you go with Ruth?" she asked. "Yes." "On a Thursday?" "Yes." Another pause. "I didn't know you liked musicals. I like some. You hate when people sing instead of talking. I hate when people sing information that should have been a memo." This time she did laugh. It came out before she could stop it, and the sound struck me in the chest. Then she seemed to remember where we were. "I should go," she said. "All right. Good night, Mom." "Good night, sweetheart." We did not speak again for 12 days. The snow along the fence melted into gray ridges. Water found a weak spot beneath my kitchen window, and I caught it in a yellow bowl until Ruth sent a man from 2 streets over to reseal the frame. I paid him, made him coffee, and did not confuse the pleasure of offering with an obligation. Lauren called on a rainy Tuesday at 5 in the afternoon. "Do you remember what size furnace filter we use?" she asked. "I do not. You bought the last one. I bought whatever was written on the old one. I threw the old one away. That was optimistic." She sighed. "There are 27 sizes. Measure the opening with what?" "A tape measure. I know that. I mean, where would Nathan keep one?" "In the toolbox." "Which toolbox?" "The red one, unless he has reorganized. He owns 3 red toolboxes. Then your marriage has larger problems than I realized." She laughed, then caught herself again. Our conversations had developed edges. Every warm moment arrived with a little alarm afterward. "I can come look Thursday," I said. The offer slipped out from habit. Lauren went quiet. "No," she said. "I'll figure it out," I offered. I know, I did not offer under duress. I know that, too. "Then why do you sound angry? Because I don't know which kind of help counts anymore." The honesty took the air out of me. "Help you ask for can count," I said. "Help I offer can count. What doesn't count is deciding my time belongs to you before we speak. I asked you to hold the coats. You asked while putting one in my arms. I'm not trying to start that again. Neither am I." She breathed out. "I'll measure the opening," she said. "Good. Do you really not know the size?" "Honestly, no." "Fine." 10 minutes later, she texted a photograph of a tape measure held across the furnace slot. "Is this 14 or 16? I enlarged the image. 16. You're measuring from the wrong edge." She sent back a word Frank used to reserve for plumbing. I replied, "Language." Her answer came immediately. "Now you sound like yourself." I stared at that sentence until the screen dimmed. Mother's Day arrived with tulips beginning to open along my front walk. Lauren made a reservation at a small French restaurant instead of asking me to host. She called 3 days beforehand to confirm the time, then called again to tell me I did not need to bring anything. I was not planning to bring food to a restaurant, I said. I know, I'm trying to be clear. You're doing very well. Is that sarcasm? Only a little. Nathan was already at the table when I arrived. He stood to hug me. We had not spoken privately since his visit, which I considered a good sign. Lauren handed me a bouquet of yellow roses and kissed my cheek. My chair had a view of the windows. No one mentioned that. Judith joined us a few minutes later carrying an enormous gift bag for me and another for herself, because she said she had bought 2 scarves and could not decide which one she wanted. She made me choose first, then selected the other with visible relief. I was hoping you'd take the green, she whispered. It makes me look seasick. The lunch remained painfully pleasant through appetizers. Nathan discussed a kitchen renovation at his office. Judith told a story about a woman in her book club who pretended to read by watching movie adaptations. Lauren asked about the musical and listened when I described Ruth's running commentary. No one mentioned the anniversary. By dessert, the effort of not mentioning it had become a 5th person at the table. Judith excused herself to the restroom. Nathan went to pay despite my objections. Lauren and I sat across from each other with half a chocolate tart between us. Are we okay? She asked. I set down my fork. What does okay mean? Her shoulders dropped. Can you please answer one question without making me define every word? I'm trying to answer honestly. I made a reservation. I checked the table twice. I told the restaurant not to change the count without calling me. That was thoughtful. You sound like my performance review. I don't know what you want me to say. I want you to say we can move on. We are moving. Then why does it feel like every conversation is a test I'm failing? Because you want to get back to where we were, and I don't. Her eyes lowered to the tart. I reached across the table but stopped before touching her hand. I want a relationship with you, I said. I just don't want the old one. You keep saying the old one was terrible. It wasn't. That is what makes this hard. It was loving and close and full of things I treasured. It also required me to say yes before you finished asking. I never knew you resented it. I didn't know either, not in one piece. She looked at my hand resting between us. After a moment, she placed hers over it. I miss calling you, she said. You can call me. It doesn't feel the same. No. That was all I could offer. She withdrew her hand when Nathan returned. In June, Aaron sent me a photograph of a pot roast so dark it looked excavated. Second attempt, he wrote. Did Denise survive? Barely. She says it needs moisture. She's wise. Keep her. He replied with a ring emoji, then immediately added, That is not an announcement. I showed Ruth, who said the roast appeared to have legal grounds for complaint. Our twice-monthly suppers became regular enough that the waitress at a neighborhood Italian place learned Ruth wanted extra lemon, and I did not want ice in my water. Sometimes Celia joined us. Sometimes she did not. She and Lauren had resumed speaking, carefully and with rules neither of them would explain to me. I called my cousin Marianne after finding an old birthday card from her in a drawer. We had once talked every week. Then Frank got sick, Marianne moved farther west, and both of us mistook delay for distance. Our first call lasted nearly 3 hours. She invited me to spend a long weekend with her in August. My first thought was that Lauren might need me. My second was that Lauren could call someone else. I went. Marianne snored, served wine in water glasses, and lived in a house where every horizontal surface held a ceramic bird. We spent one afternoon driving to a lake we never found because neither of us would admit we had missed the turn. I came home with 6 photographs, a stiff back, and a small ceramic robin Marianne forced into my suitcase. Lauren picked me up from the airport because I asked. She arrived 10 minutes early. Did you have fun? She asked after loading my bag. I did. You didn't call. You didn't call me. I thought you were busy. I was. She pulled away from the curb, then glanced at me. That sounded pointed. It wasn't. You can just say you enjoyed not being available. I enjoyed the trip. We drove in silence for 2 exits. Then she said, "Our oven stopped working." "What did you do?" "Called someone." "Did you have to wait at the house?" "Yes." "How was it?" She looked at me and smiled despite herself. "Very boring." "I've heard. Nathan offered to call you." "What did you say?" "I said no." "Thank you. It cost $400. Thank me again." At home, she carried my suitcase upstairs without being asked. She saw the photograph of us from her wedding still on the bookshelf and stopped. "You put it out, yes." She picked it up. "I remember this. I hoped you would. You stabbed me with the needle. You moved. I was standing on a chair in a broken wedding dress. You were always dramatic." She smiled at the picture, but tears gathered in her eyes. Was this my anniversary gift? Yes. I never opened it. No? She traced the frame with one finger. "Why didn't you give it to me later?" "I was waiting for it not to be used as a shortcut." She set it down too quickly. The hinged stand caught against the shelf and bent with a small metallic snap. "Oh no." Lauren picked it up again. The frame itself was intact, but the stand hung loose. "I'm sorry. It's only the back. I'll have it fixed. You don't need to. I want to." Before I could object, she carried it downstairs and placed it beside her purse. She took it with her when she left. The empty space on the shelf bothered me that night. I almost called and asked for it back. Instead, I put Marianne's ceramic robin there. It looked smug. The photograph did not return. September brought cool evenings and a phone call from Lauren after a dinner she had hosted for 4 of Nathan's friends. "I burned the potatoes," she said. "How?" "I forgot them." "In the oven?" "In the pot." "They boiled dry. That takes commitment." Nathan opened every window. Caroline stood in the kitchen waving a magazine at the smoke detector. Did it help? No, but the magazine was about mindful living, so that felt right. I laughed. "We ordered pizza," she said. "Everyone survived. I'm glad. The old me would have called you when I smelled the pot. The old me would have driven over with side dishes." "I know." "There was no accusation in it. I wanted to call you," she said. "But then I thought you'd see it as proof that I only need you when something goes wrong. I would rather you call honestly because something went wrong than pretend to call for me while handing me a job." That is an irritatingly specific distinction. It is still a distinction. We stayed on the phone for 40 minutes. She told me about work, Nathan's habit of leaving cabinet doors open, and a woman in her neighborhood who had started jogging at dawn with a bell attached to her waist. She asked about Marianne. She asked what I was reading. At the end, she did not request anything. The leaves had turned orange by the time Lauren called and asked if she could come over the following Sunday. "Alone?" I asked. "Yes." "Should I make lunch?" "No." "Should I avoid making lunch?" "Mom," I'm clarifying. She arrived carrying no cake, flowers, or emergency. We sat in the living room. She kept looking at the ceramic robin. "What is that? Your cousin Marianne's taste." "It's terrifying." "I know." She folded her hands in her lap. "Nathan and I are hosting Thanksgiving," she said. I waited. "I would like you to come." "Thank you." "As my mother," she added, "not to cook, not to bring food, not to fix anything." I looked at her. She swallowed. "I am asking you to come as a guest." "That is a very specific invitation," I said. "It needed to be." "How many people?" 11. 12 if Aaron brings Denise. He will. He hasn't confirmed. He sent me a photograph of her eating his pot roast. That is commitment. Lauren smiled briefly, then looked down at her hands. "Judith is coming. Aunt Maureen, Celia, Dan and Marcy." My face must have changed at the last 2 names. "I know," she said. "They were at the anniversary. They were sitting in my place. Marcy was. Dan benefited from the arrangement. I can tell them not to come." "No, I mean it. They don't even know what happened. That is why telling them not to come would be strange. They're Nathan's friends, but I invited them. I can uninvite them. I don't want you rearranging Thanksgiving to protect me from 2 people who ate dinner." Lauren nodded. though the set of her shoulders said she had hoped removing them might count as repair. "What if someone unexpected arrives?" I asked. "I have a folding table." That was fast. I've had months to think about chairs. The answer was so honest I could not joke. "And if the turkey catches fire?" I asked. "We order pizza. If Judith's pie collapses, she will blame the humidity. If Aunt Maureen asks me to wash dishes, I will tell her no. You cannot control every person in the house." "I know." She looked at me. "But I can control what I ask of you." There was something new in her voice. Not humility exactly. Lauren had never been built for easy humility. It was more like concentration. "Is this your apology?" I asked. Her mouth tightened. "No." "Good." She blinked. "Good? I don't want an apology hidden inside an invitation. I would spend the whole meal trying to decide whether accepting turkey meant accepting your version of what happened. I don't have an apology you'll believe yet. That may be the most honest thing you've said about it. It wasn't meant as a compliment." "I know." She stood and walked to the bookshelf. Her fingers touched the ceramic robin, then wisely moved away. "I am sorry you were hurt," she said. "That is still about my reaction." "I know." "I'm sorry the evening got out of control." "That is about the evening." "I know. I handled it badly. A performance review." She gave me a look. "I remember." "Then stop trying out sentences because you think one of them will unlock the door." "What am I supposed to do? Understand it first." "I do understand. You understand that you want this to be over." Her eyes flashed, but she did not raise her voice. "I understand that I used you," she said. "I don't understand why I did it. That is yours to work out. I'm trying." I believed her, which frightened me more than anger had. Anger was firm ground. Trying created expectations. "I'll come," I said. Lauren's face changed so quickly that I saw how prepared she had been for refusal. "You will?" "Yes." She sat again. "Okay, I'm driving myself. Why? So I can leave when I choose." Her relief dimmed, but she nodded. "Okay, I will not bring food. Thank you. That may be the first Thanksgiving in 40 years when I arrive empty-handed. You can bring wine if it makes you nervous." "I don't know enough about wine. Neither does anyone who talks about it that much." I smiled. At the door, she hugged me. It was not our old hug. She kept her hands high on my back, as if afraid of holding too tightly. I held her the same way. After she left, I stood in the living room looking at the ceramic robin. "You have nothing to say," I told it. Its painted black eyes suggested otherwise. "Erin called that evening. She invited you?" "Yes. And you said yes?" "Yes. Just checking." She called me afterward and sounded like she'd successfully negotiated a ceasefire. "It's dinner. In this family, same thing. Are you bringing Denise?" "I am, if that's okay." "Why would it not be?" "I don't know. Thanksgiving politics. She ate your pot roast. She has earned citizenship." He laughed. "Lauren told me not to ask you to make anything." "That is correct. Not even the stuffing?" "Especially not the stuffing. Her stuffing has raisins. Then you may pick them out." "Mom." "What? Could you accidentally bring stuffing?" "No." "Could I make yours?" "Yes." "With a recipe?" "Yes." "Will you text it?" I considered the distinction. "Ask Lauren first. It is her menu. Look at you respecting the chain of command. That sentence may get raisins in your portion." Later, he texted that Lauren had approved the stuffing on the condition that he make it himself and clean whatever kitchen he used. I sent him the recipe. 3 minutes later, he called. What does stale but not hard mean? Exactly what it says. How long do I leave bread out? Overnight. Covered? With a towel. What kind of towel? One that does not have asbestos. You're enjoying this. A little. Judith telephoned the next afternoon. Her voice had the bright caution of someone carrying a tray over uneven ground. I heard we're all going to Lauren's. That is my understanding. I'm bringing pumpkin pie. Did she ask you to? She said I could bring one pie? 1? I usually bring 3. I know, I feel restricted. You'll recover. She laughed, then grew quiet. Elaine, I owe you an apology. I sat at the kitchen table. For what? For that dinner. You did not plan the seating? No. But I let them lead me to the table while you stood beside those coats. You did not know I had no chair. I knew you had been put to work. That was not unusual enough to alarm anyone. It should have been. There was no drama in her voice, which made the words easier to hear. I liked being the mother who arrived and was taken care of, she said. I told myself you preferred organizing things. Sometimes I did. Yes, but preference is not destiny. I should have stayed beside you until you could come in. You were invited as a guest. You acted like one, and you were invited as a guest, too. I looked out the window at brown leaves collecting beneath the hedge. I don't blame you, Judith. That is generous. It is accurate. Still, I'm sorry I didn't notice. Thank you. She exhaled. Now, about pie. Do you think she meant 1 total, or 1 from me? Thanksgiving morning, I woke before 6 out of habit. For 41 years, the holiday had begun in my kitchen before sunrise. Frank would make coffee strong enough to frighten the spoon. I would chop celery while the house was quiet, then spend the rest of the day claiming I wasn't tired. At 6:15, I was standing in front of the pantry with a loaf of bread in my hand. I did not remember taking it out. The bread was fresh, useless for stuffing unless I dried it in the oven. I imagined arriving at Lauren's with a casserole dish covered in foil. No one would complain. Aaron would cheer. Judith would ask for the recipe she had already requested 6 times. Lauren would say, "You didn't have to," while making room on the table, and nothing would have changed. I returned the bread to the pantry. At 8, Ruth came over carrying 2 mugs of coffee and wearing a sweatshirt that said, "Talk turkey to me." "You look tense," she said. "I'm going to a family dinner, so is half the country. The other half is lying." She handed me a mug. "What if she asks for help?" I said. "Do you want to help?" "I don't know." "Then say you don't know. That is not useful in a kitchen. Neither am I. People still invite me." I sat on the front step despite the cold. Ruth sat beside me. "I don't want to punish her," I said, "so don't. I also don't want to rush in the first time something goes wrong. So don't. You have become irritatingly simple. I've always been simple. You use extra thoughts as packing material." She reached into her sweatshirt pocket and handed me a spare house key. "What is this?" "Mine. In case Thanksgiving becomes unbearable. There's soup in my freezer and bourbon over the refrigerator. You'll be at your sister's. Yes, but my house has no emotional expectations. Eat everything." I closed my fingers around the key. "You expect disaster? I expect you to stay too long if you don't know where else to go." I slipped the key into my purse beside my car keys. At 2:30, I dressed in black trousers and a soft green sweater. I wore the pearls again, not for Frank, not for Lauren, but because they were mine. I left the framed wedding photograph's empty place occupied by Marianne's Robin. Lauren's street was crowded with cars. I parked halfway down the block, facing outward. That detail felt cowardly until I decided caution and cowardice were not the same thing. Nathan opened the door. "You came," he said. I said I would. "I know. It's still good to see you." He hugged me, then reached for my coat. Before he could take it, Lauren appeared behind him. "I've got it," she said. Her hair was tied up with a wooden spoon stuck through the knot. A streak of flour crossed one cheek. She held out her hand. I removed my coat and gave it to her. "I'll put it in the guest room," she said. "No valuables in the pockets, I hope." Nathan looked alarmed. I smiled. Only Ruth's key and several unresolved issues. Lauren laughed once. It was nervous, but real. She carried my coat upstairs herself. The house smelled of sage, onions, and something slightly burned. Voices came from the living room. Aaron appeared carrying a wooden spoon and wearing the same faded apron he had used at my house. "Denise says the stuffing is too wet," he said without greeting me. A woman with short dark hair leaned around him. I said moist. "Mom, this is Denise." Denise, the moisture critic. Denise wiped her hand before offering it. I've heard a great deal about your pot roast. Then you have heard apologies. She laughed. Judith kissed me and adjusted my pearls. Celia hugged me hard enough to move both of us sideways. Dan and Marcy greeted me politely, with no sign that they knew their arrival had once altered the course of an evening. Aunt Maureen sat on the sofa drinking white wine and giving Nathan instructions about his own fireplace. The normality of it all felt dangerous. Lauren returned from upstairs. "Can I get you something to drink?" she asked. "Water, please." She brought it to me rather than pointing toward the kitchen. I sat beside Judith. For 12 full minutes, no one asked me to do anything. Then a timer sounded. Lauren hurried into the kitchen. Another timer began beeping before she silenced the first. Nathan followed her. Aaron looked at me. "Do not," Denise said, catching his sleeve. "I wasn't going to say anything. You looked at your mother." "I often look at my mother. Not like she's a fire extinguisher." From the kitchen came the clang of a pan hitting the floor. Every conversation in the living room stopped. A thin ribbon of smoke drifted through the doorway. Nathan came through the doorway carrying a roasting pan with both oven mitts. Lauren followed him, waving a dish towel beneath the smoke detector. "It's fine," she announced. The alarm began shrieking. "It sounds fine," Celia said. "What happened?" Judith asked. "Some drippings hit the bottom of the oven." "Are they on fire?" Aunt Maureen called. "No. Then why is there smoke? Because smoke enjoys attention." Lauren opened the kitchen window. Nathan set the turkey on the stove and returned to the oven with a box of baking soda. Aaron stood. Denise tightened her grip on his sleeve. "I can help," he said. "You can ask," she replied. He looked toward the kitchen. "Lauren, do you want help?" "Yes. Bring the stuffing and stop my husband from seasoning the oven." Aaron went in. Everyone else looked at me. It happened without discussion. Heads turned, eyes shifted, and the room waited for the person who had rescued every holiday since before some of them had joined the family. Aunt Maureen lifted her wine glass toward the kitchen. "Elaine, you'd better get in there." I took a sip of water. Lauren said she has it. Clearly she doesn't. From the kitchen, Lauren called, "I do." Another pan clattered. Maureen raised her eyebrows. "You're going to sit there while your daughter struggles." The old shame rose so quickly it felt rehearsed. My body leaned forward before my mind caught it. Judith's hand settled lightly on my arm. "She was invited to sit," Judith said. Maureen looked from her to me. "Nobody sits on Thanksgiving." "You're doing an excellent impression," Celia said. "I'm supervising." "That explains the wine." Before Maureen could respond, Lauren appeared in the doorway. The flower on her cheek had acquired a stripe of soot. "Mom, stay where you are." "I have not moved." "I know." She looked at Maureen. "Please stop asking her. I was only teasing." "No, you were assigning." The word landed in the room. Maureen's mouth opened. Lauren turned back toward the kitchen before she could answer. Denise leaned close to me. "I like her. You have excellent timing. I met Aaron. I need it." The smoke thinned. Nathan opened the back door and stood there, fanning cold air into the kitchen with a cutting board. The alarm stopped. A few minutes later, Lauren came into the living room holding a spoonful of stuffing. "Can I ask you something?" she said to me. "You just did." She gave me the look I had known since she was 12. "Is this too wet?" I tasted it. The stuffing was soft but not ruined. Aaron had overestimated the broth because he still believed recipes were arguments rather than instructions. "It needs 10 minutes uncovered," I said. "That's it?" "And more pepper," Aaron called from the kitchen. I added pepper. "Then the pepper has lost confidence." Lauren smiled. "Thank you." She returned to the kitchen with the spoon. Maureen watched her go. "So advice is allowed. I cannot keep up with all these rules. There are 2, Celia said. "Ask. Listen." Judith covered a smile with her napkin. The meal reached the table 45 minutes late. The turkey was darker on one side, the carrots had gone soft, and one pan of rolls had become small brown weapons. Lauren put them in a basket anyway. For self-defense, she said. Nathan carried in the gravy. Denise brought the asparagus, which someone had actually remembered. Aaron arrived with the stuffing and placed it on the table as if setting down a championship trophy. Moist, Denise said. Triumphant, he corrected. I waited until everyone else began finding seats. My place card was beside Lauren's, Elaine Mercer, in dark green ink. There were 12 chairs around the table. Not 11, not 13, 12. Denise sat beside Aaron. Dan and Marcy sat together across from Celia. Judith was on Nathan's other side. Maureen took the chair nearest the wine. No one occupied an improvised corner or an invisible category. Lauren pulled out my chair. I can manage, I said. I know. I sat. For a moment, the room blurred. Candlelight shifted across the plates. Conversation moved around me as everyone passed bowls and asked for gravy. A small stain marked Lauren's tablecloth near the centerpiece. One of the gold napkin rings had been replaced with plain ribbon. Nothing matched as perfectly as the anniversary dinner. It was beautiful. Nathan stood with his wine glass. Lauren looked up sharply. We agreed no speech. It's not a speech. You say that before speeches. He ignored her. Thank you all for being here, he said. Especially those who cooked, those who traveled, and those who entered the kitchen only with permission. A few people laughed. He raised his glass. I'm grateful we're all at the same table. The words were simple. He did not look directly at me until after he finished saying them. We drank. The first part of the meal went well enough that everyone relaxed. Maureen complained about the rolls and ate too. Judith praised the turkey's dark side, claiming it had character. Denise asked me how Frank and I had met, and Aaron interrupted so many times that she finally held up one hand. I asked your mother. I was there for some of the story. You were not present when they met. I've heard it. Then this is a chance to practice silence. Frank would have adored her. I told the story. How he had asked me to dance at a community hall, stepped on my shoe and blamed the floor. How I had refused a second dance until he brought me a bottle of orange soda as a peace offering. He said you fell in love immediately, Lauren said. Your father had an optimistic relationship with facts. She smiled. Marcy passed me the potatoes. I'm glad you're feeling better, she said. The table shifted. It was barely noticeable. Nathan stopped cutting his turkey. Celia's fork paused halfway to her mouth. Lauren looked at Marcy. Thank you, I said. Dan and I felt awful that you got sick at the anniversary dinner. Dan nodded. Terrible timing. I opened my mouth, but Lauren spoke first. She wasn't sick. Marcy looked confused. Lauren, Nathan said softly. No. Lauren set down her fork. I should have corrected this months ago. You don't need to, I said. Yes, I do. Every person at the table became interested in not appearing interested. Lauren folded her napkin beside her plate. Mom left because I gave her seat away, she said. When you and Dan came, I moved your place card to her chair. The restaurant couldn't add another one, so I asked her to eat outside the dining room. Marcy's face lost color. I had no idea. I know, Lauren said. Neither of you did anything wrong. Dan cleared his throat. We could have left. You had already driven 2 hours. I should have told you before you sat down or made room or given up my own chair. I had choices. No one moved. And the coats? Celia asked. Lauren gave her a warning look. What coats? Marcy said. I wished briefly that the floor would open beneath Celia's chair. The restaurant didn't have a coat closet, Lauren said. I asked Mom to hold everyone's coats. People thought she worked there. Dan looked toward the guest room where our coats had been placed. Oh, he said. That one syllable contained more honest discomfort than all the explanations after the anniversary. Marcy reached for my hand across the table, then seemed to think better of making me participate in her reaction. I'm so sorry, she said. You did not know. I handed you my coat. So did everyone. Philip tipped you, Celia added. Celia, I said. What? Maureen asked. Lauren looked at me. I saw that. The room went still again. Months earlier in my kitchen, she had said she had not understood. Nathan looked down at his plate. "You told me you didn't," I said. "I lied." She did not soften the word. "I saw the money in your hand." I knew enough. I turned away because Caroline had just arrived, and I didn't want to stop smiling and explain. Caroline was not there to absorb the shame. It remained where it belonged. Maureen made a disapproving noise. "Well, that was thoughtless, but families survive thoughtless things. Elaine has always been sensitive about being taken for granted." Lauren turned toward her. "No, Mom has always been quiet about being taken for granted." Maureen blinked. "I used her," Lauren said. "That is what happened. No one applauded, no one praised her honesty. The gravy cooled, the candles burned lower, and every person at the table had to decide where to put their eyes. I looked at my daughter. Her hands trembled slightly against the tablecloth. "Thank you," I said. She nodded once. Then Judith picked up the basket of ruined rolls. "Who wants another weapon?" The room breathed again. Conversation returned carefully. Dan told a story about a holiday turkey he had cooked with the bag of organs still inside. Maureen argued that plenty of people did that. Denise whispered to me that anyone who claimed plenty of people had done the thing herself. Lauren did not speak much. Neither did I. The meal was not magically healed by truth. Marcy kept apologizing with her eyes every time she passed me something. Nathan watched Lauren as if unsure whether to be proud or worried. Celia looked satisfied enough to be irritating. Still, I ate while my food was hot. After dessert, chairs scraped back. Everyone began carrying plates toward the kitchen. I picked up mine. Lauren appeared beside me. "You can leave that. I can carry my own plate." "I know. I'm trying to, Lauren." She stopped. "There is a difference between treating me as a guest and treating me as fragile." Her face reddened. "Right. I'll take my plate to the counter. I will not wash 12 place settings." "Fair." In the kitchen, Dan loaded the dishwasher badly. Marcy corrected him. Denise wrapped leftovers. Aaron dried a serving platter and left water all over it. Nathan scraped plates while Judith supervised pie distribution. Maureen sat in the living room with her wine. "Consistent," Celia said when she noticed. I carried coffee to the sofa and sat beside Maureen. "You made that sound worse than it was," she said quietly. "Which part?" "The dinner." Lauren was under pressure. She told it accurately. She should not have embarrassed herself in front of everybody. She corrected a lie in front of the people who had been told it. Maureen pursed her lips. "You could have settled this privately months ago. We tried. You know what I mean. Forgive her and stop making her prove things." I looked at my sister-in-law. Maureen had loved Frank fiercely and me according to rules she had never explained. She believed family peace was a room women maintained after everyone else left it untidy. "Forgiveness is not pretending something ended before it changed," I said. "There you go, making a philosophy out of dinner. You brought it up." She drank her wine. Across the room, Lauren stood in the kitchen doorway. She had heard enough. For a moment, I thought she would defend herself by agreeing with Maureen. Instead, she said, "Mom didn't make me say any of that." Maureen waved one hand. "I'm staying out of it." Celia, passing with a stack of cups, nearly choked. By 8, guests began leaving. Dan and Marcy thanked Lauren 3 times. Marcy hugged me and whispered another apology. I told her to stop carrying a coat that belonged to someone else. She did not understand the line until she reached the door. Then she looked back at me and nodded. Judith kissed both my cheeks. "You were right about one pie," she told Lauren. "I resent it." Aaron and Denise left with 4 containers and the wet stuffing debate unresolved. Aaron hugged me, then whispered, "Ask Mom. Don't assume. You are enjoying this too much." "Definitely." Celia was last besides Maureen, whom Nathan had volunteered to drive home. At the door, Celia glanced between Lauren and me. "I'm leaving," she announced. "This is personal growth." "Go," Lauren said. When the door closed, the house became suddenly enormous. Nathan carried Maureen's coat downstairs. Lauren had put mine upstairs separate from the others. "I should go," I said. Can you stay 5 minutes? Lauren asked. Nathan looked at her. I'll take Aunt Maureen home, he said. Slowly. I heard that, Maureen called from the porch. When they left, Lauren and I stood alone in the living room amid empty glasses, bent napkins, and the scent of extinguished candles. She walked to the cabinet beside the fireplace and opened the bottom door. When she turned back, she was holding the silver frame. The stand no longer hung loose. Someone had repaired the hinge and polished the metal. The cream tissue was gone. Lauren set the photograph on the coffee table between us. I kept trying to tell myself I was embarrassed by the restaurant, she said, or the guests, or the Count. She sat across from me. But that isn't what I was ashamed of. I was ashamed of needing you, she said. The sentence was so quiet I almost missed it. Lauren looked at the photograph rather than me. I told myself I wanted the dinner to be perfect because it was important to Nathan, but half those people were people I wanted to impress. They had houses that looked finished all the time. They hosted without running upstairs for safety pins. They never seemed to call their mothers from the grocery store because they couldn't remember which potatoes to buy. Everyone calls someone about potatoes. You know what I mean? I do. She pressed her thumb against the edge of the silver frame. You knew everything behind that dinner, she said. You knew I changed the flowers 3 times. You knew the first dress didn't fit. You knew Nathan and I fought about the guest list. You knew I was terrified nobody would come, then terrified too many people would come. And both happened. I wanted to walk into that room and look like someone who had made a beautiful life without anybody holding it up from underneath. I glanced toward the kitchen, where dirty glasses waited beside a dishwasher Dan had loaded sideways. Beautiful lives require support, I said. I know that now. You knew it then. You just did not want anyone else to know. Yes. The word remained between us. Lauren picked up the photograph. You were fixing my dress in this picture, she said. I remembered the laughing, but I didn't remember what you were doing until I looked at it again. You were working. I was making 6 stitches. You were always making 6 stitches. Carrying 1 bag, waiting 1 afternoon, cooking 1 dinner. Every favor was small enough that I could pretend it wasn't holding up my whole life. I allowed that. You did. But I counted on it. She returned the frame to the table. When the restaurant said there was no coat closet, I saw you and thought, Mom will fix it. I didn't think about whether you wanted to. I didn't think about why you were there. You thought about what I could absorb. Yes. And Philip? Her face tightened. I knew what he was doing as soon as he folded the money. You told me you didn't. I lied because admitting I understood made it a choice. It was a choice. I know. She folded her hands together, pressing the fingers until the knuckles whitened. If I had corrected him, Caroline would have heard. Philip would have been embarrassed. Everyone would have looked at you, then at me, and they would have realized I had my mother standing there holding their coats. So I acted like I hadn't seen. That protected no one except you. I know. Not even Philip. He carried that $20 through dinner thinking he had already spent it. A faint, painful smile touched her mouth. I moved your place card before I asked whether the restaurant could add another chair, she said. I guessed. I didn't even tell you Dan and Marcy had arrived. I just slipped your card into my purse. Why mine? Because I knew you wouldn't make a scene. I left. Not soon enough. That surprised me. She leaned forward, elbows on her knees. I keep thinking about how long you stayed. The tip happened, and you stayed. I asked you to watch the coats, and you stayed. You had to reach the point where I asked you to eat alone before you believed you were allowed to go. I looked at her. I have spent months telling myself you were dramatic, she said. But if I had done that to Judith, Nathan would have stopped the dinner before the first course. If Nathan had done it to me, I would never let him call it a seating problem. I expected you to accept something I would have considered unforgivable if it happened to me. You expected me to be practical. I expected your pain to be cheaper than everyone else's discomfort. Her voice broke on the last word. This time, when tears filled her eyes, I did not rush across the room. I also did not look away. Lauren wiped her cheeks with both hands. "I am sorry I asked you to hold those coats," she said. "I'm sorry I let people mistake you for someone who was there to serve them. I'm sorry I saw Philip tip you and chose not to protect you because I wanted to protect the way I looked. I'm sorry I took your name off the table. I'm sorry I asked you to eat outside and then blamed you for leaving. And I'm sorry I lied about it afterward." She took a trembling breath. "You were my mother, and I treated you like the safest person to humiliate." There was no sentence I had imagined that hurt as much as the true one. I looked down at my hands. The pearls felt cool against my neck. From outside came the sound of a car passing slowly over wet leaves. When you called after I left, I said, "You said I embarrassed you. I know, I kept waiting for you to ask if I had eaten." Her eyes closed. "I never did. No? I'm sorry. I know." She sat with that. I thought forgiveness might arrive as warmth or relief. Instead, it felt like setting down a heavy bag and discovering my arm still ached. "I believe you," I said. Lauren opened her eyes. "I forgive you." Her face crumpled. She covered her mouth. "But I will not go back," I said. The tears continued, though she nodded. "I can forgive what happened and still refuse the arrangement that made it possible." "I'm not asking you to go back. You have asked in smaller ways. I know. The Mother's Day lunch. The calls where you waited for me to offer. Part of you wanted proof that I would become available in exactly the old way. Yes. And part of me wanted you to ask so I could feel needed again." She lowered her hands. "You did?" "Of course I did. You were not the only person getting something from how we lived. But you were exhausted." "Yes? You liked it?" "Sometimes. I liked that you called me first. I liked being the person who knew where Nathan kept the tape measure. After your father died, usefulness gave my days a shape. Why didn't you tell me? I did not understand it well enough to tell you, and I was afraid that if I stopped doing things for you, you might stop calling. I did stop. Yes." Her face tightened with shame. "That silence hurt," I said. "It also taught me something I did not want to learn." "What?" "I had made it difficult for both of us to know whether you loved my company or my availability. I loved both." "I know, not loved, love." I looked at her. "I love talking to you," she said. "I love that you know which parts of my stories I leave out. I love your terrible political color jokes. I called because I needed things, but I also invented things to need because I didn't know how to say I wanted my mother. The words reached somewhere the apology had not. You could have said that. I'm saying it now. Yes." We sat in the ruined, overfed quiet of Thanksgiving night. "I'm sorry I stepped into your marriage," I said. "Nathan should never have used me to avoid conversations with you, but I should have refused. I liked being the reasonable one. You did." "I know. You made me feel like he was your favorite sometimes. He was easier. That is not better." "No, it is only true." She gave a wet, reluctant laugh. "I would complain about him," she said, "and you would say, 'What did he say exactly?' I thought I was helping. You sounded like opposing counsel. I'm sorry, I believe you. It was not the same as saying she forgave me. I respected the distinction." "What happens now?" she asked. "Now Nathan returns from the longest drive to Aunt Marine's house in recorded history. You know what I mean? I do." She touched the repaired frame. "I don't want to lose you. You haven't. It felt like I had. You lost access to a version of me. The version who always said yes. Yes, I miss her. So do I, sometimes." Lauren considered that. "Can we have Sunday dinners again?" she asked. "Not every Sunday. Once a month? Perhaps. At your house?" "Sometimes. Sometimes here. Sometimes at a restaurant where everyone receives a chair." She winced, then nodded. "What about the evening calls? Call when you want to talk. What if I need something? Ask. And if you say no, you accept it without deciding, I have withdrawn my love. What if you want to say yes but think you're violating your new rules? I do not have new rules. I am trying to have choices. So if you want to help, you can. Yes. And if you don't, you won't. That is how favors are supposed to work. She looked almost suspicious of the simplicity. I can do that, she said. You will fail sometimes. Her eyebrows rose. So will I added. I will offer before you ask. I will become resentful over something I volunteered to do. I have had 68 years of practice being indirect. At least you're honest. Occasionally. She picked up the framed photograph and turned it over. The new hinge was small and brighter than the older metal. I had the back repaired, she said. I see. I was going to give it back to you. It was always meant for you. Her fingers tightened around the frame. Even after everything? I chose it for you before everything. She studied the image again. Dad remembered this moment. He did. I kept thinking the anniversary was supposed to honor him, but if he had taken the picture 2 seconds later, you would have been the only person in it. That is how photographs work. You know what I mean? Yes. She ran one finger over the glass. Can I keep it? It is your gift. I never said thank you. You are saying it now. She held the frame against her chest for a moment, then carried it to the mantel. She placed it in the center, between a pair of candles. In that position, the photograph faced the whole room. The front door opened. Nathan stepped inside, bringing cold air with him. Aunt Maureen wanted to discuss 3 alternate routes, he said. Then he saw our faces and stopped. Should I leave again? No, Lauren said. She crossed the room and took his hand. We're okay, I said. Lauren looked at me. We're beginning, she corrected. Nathan nodded as though he understood better than to celebrate. I stood. This time, when I said I should go, Lauren did not ask me to stay longer to prove anything. She went upstairs and returned with my coat folded over her arms. Ruth's key is in the right pocket, she said. Did you search me? I checked, because you mentioned valuables. She held the coat while I put it on, then smoothed the collar. The gesture reminded me of all the times I had straightened hers before she stepped out into the world. Lunch next week? She asked. Thursday. Not Sunday? I have supper with Ruth on Sunday. Thursday, then. No errands attached. No errands. No repair people. I know my furnace filter size now. 16. I wrote it down. Nathan opened the door. The night air smelled of wood smoke and cold earth. Lauren walked me to my car even though I told her she did not need to. At the curb, she hugged me. Not carefully this time. Her arms went fully around me, and mine went fully around her. I love you, Mom. I love you too. She released me before the embrace became a promise neither of us could keep. I got into my car. She waited on the sidewalk while I started the engine and turned on the headlights. Through the windshield, I saw her standing beside Nathan, her hand tucked into his. My coat rested lightly on my shoulders. I had my own keys in my pocket, my own place to go, and another place where, when I chose to return, there would be a chair with my name on it.